What's up, everybody? Welcome to PSI Love You XOXO episode 67. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the future class of video games, Blessing Adeoye Jr.
What's up, Greg?
Not much. What's up with you? What weird bullshit do you have for me today? You always come in here. Really? Then we turn it to X circle square triangle, who writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames, just like you can, and says, please rank the PlayStation symbols in order of your favorite.
I like this.
Yeah, I do too, of course. I mean, this is something you don't think about much, but I think the answers are pretty clear. So now the first thing is, are you going to call XX? Or are you going to call it cross? What do you want to do here?
I'm calling it X. I usually call it X.
Because you're American.
I'm not with this, because I'm American. I'm not with this cross bullshit. The only
you're
cross
not,
I acknowledge is the cross of our Jesus Christ, our Savior. God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, we won't give into the metric system here in America. We won't give into this cross bullshit. It's GIF, it's whatever. You know what I mean? It's an X. It's clearly an X.
How do you feel about circle? Do you call circle? If somebody calls circle O, would you be offended?
I know what they mean, but I also know that they're not a hardcore gamer. You know what I mean? I understand that they just have the PlayStation.
They're trying to do it to be different, Greg. You know what I'm saying?
No, I've never, in all my days, first off, even with the X cross business, even there, I don't hear people usually, and I've covered PlayStation my entire life, right, at this point. I don't see people throw it in your face when you call it the X button. I've never, in a passing conversation with anyone at a PAX or on a podcast, the O button. Like, you know, that's something like Poe would say. And Poe's a great doctor. He's a good kid. You know what I mean? He's a fucking moron, though, all right? He's not the kind of person we're talking about. Poe doesn't even know how to download a PS I Love You XOXO, all right? For him, it's all just...
it is called XOXO, you know, our podcast, which I know the name has nothing to do with PlayStation.
That's a play on a thing. That's, you know what I mean? That's a play on a thing. That's not us saying, like, hey, you know, it's not cross circle, you know. There's a reason.
That's fair. I will say, I think I did used to call it O when I was young, when I first got it.
Of course, you're a kid. Then you learn better. You grow out of it, you know? I called luminous lumines. Then somebody corrects you, and you're like, that's a correction I'll take. I understand that. I will go. The cross correction I will not take. You understand? Like, there has to be boundaries, and there's got to be a point where you go, no shoe. I'm not going to call it the cross button, all right? It's the X button. The shoe goes,
has that look of disapproval on him.
No big deal.
I don't like it.
the constant judging of one Shuhei Yoshida. He's always there, always watching, always judging.
You say that it's easy. I don't know if it's easy. Because, like, the symbols aren't just the symbols. There's connotations to them, right? Like, X is usually accept, you know, square. Square does a lot of heavy lifting that I don't think we acknowledge.
We don't give Square enough credit.
Yeah, Square goes from being the action button to being the press X to like hack and slash. It's often a hack and slash button unless you're a Souls game, then it's going to be R2 or something. Square can be, maybe depending on the game, could be shoot. You know, and like in modern games,
used to open doors and shit. Square, I feel
again, like the action button.
Here's how it goes.
Circle is easily
number one is X. Again, because we're in America, except, and obviously now that's changed, obviously worldwide, but for the longest time, obviously in Japan, that was canceled, right? So X is number one for Greg Miller on the list of PlayStation buttons here. Of course, you want to call it cross and you want to be wrong, that's on you. I don't care. Shoot, do your thing. But we're talking about X being number one. It's the most used button. It's always the button that would wear out on my DualShocks throughout existence, right? Some of that being, of course, Metal Gear, where I'd take a chapstick and rub it across so I didn't tap or anything like that, right? And then I think right below it is circle. Now, circle, of course.
Really?
Circle, I think, gets a bad rap. Okay. It's the second most used button. And a lot of times, it means cancel. It means get out of something. But I think it's right there, and it's doing work. It's the one making the system work. You're using it all the time. It's second nature. It's right there.
See, but that's why I think triangle is a bit underrated. Because circle, I think we all know what circle is going to do in a game. Most of the time, it's back out when you're in menus. And then for certain games, it's obviously going to be your dash. But like circle is somewhat predictable in a way where triangle is underrated.
It's reliable. It's reliable. It's not predictable. It's reliable.
Sure, I guess that's another word
reliable.
For it. Triangle, you never know what you're going to get. Triangle is like a box of chocolates, where triangle can be pretty much anything in any game, and you cannot predict it. That is the button where it's like, okay, what is going to be our explode button or our
heavy attack, our menu button?
Heavy attack.
Playing Persona, you know?
Yeah, like why? Not why. Triangle. Oh God, wrong podcast. Triangle can be whatever you want it to be, and I think that's what makes it great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear you. It's just that.
Here's
Okay,
my
go ahead.
argument
Bear
for
Courtney
Square.
on the ones and twos. What do you got?
Here's my argument for Square.
Don't
being
even bring
number
Square's
2.
dead last.
No,
Number
here's-
4.
no,
Who
here's
cares
the
about
thing.
Square?
When you're holding a controller, and this is why I think it's confused, like weird that you're saying a circle is number 2 because it's like the second most dependable button. When you're holding a controller, like the way that your thumb is angled, you're gonna be going X, and then the next easily accessible button is gonna be Square.
I agree.
And
I
that's
agree.
how developers are probably designing a lot of things with when it comes to like game controller design and shit like that. I think Square.
Wait, hold on. Can Blessing not figure out how to get the controller? He's like, he doesn't understand his hand can't
I'm
rotate.
trying to illustrate it in a way. I'm trying to illustrate it realistically with the way I hold my controller, which is usually if I'm pressing X, like I'm not
Square's
pressing X
right
with the tip of my thumb. I'm pressing X usually with almost the middle of my thumb, and then
you got Square
then
right there.
Square
plus.
is at the tip.
Exactly.
Like I have X and Square being the way my thumb rests on those buttons, and then I'm actually moving
X and
over
Square
to triangle and circle.
best friends, and that's why they got to be number 1 and number 2.
We are 3 to 4 years away from triangle and square just dying on the vine because the shoulder buttons do all the work now. You got X, you got X, you got circle, and then you got your shoulder buttons. That's what you're using. But think about it. Play some games tonight. First off, go through the menus of getting into your games and getting out of your games. How many times are you fucking using Square? You clowns. You're never
Here's my
using.
thing. I
you're
love
never
X.
using that pink purplish.
I love
bastard.
X. I love X so much, and I buy your argument for it being number 1. But X also is the least unique button on the DualSense controller. Every other controller also has an X. Xbox has an X. Switch has an X. All the X's, for some reason, are in all different places.
Xbox has an X
gets in your
only
way
because
sometimes.
there's an X button for the Xbox, right?
Wait, what? Say that again?
No,
Xbox
you're right.
only has an X button because there's an X button for the Xbox. What does that even fucking mean?
You're right. Because it was. Yeah,
because like
Well,
to
here's
be
what
fair,
I'll counter with then. Here's
Switch-
what I'll counter with then.
Yeah,
All right,
you're
cool. Every controller has an X button. How many of those controllers have a cross button?
I just get thrown off because the X button.
You
is
can't flip
somewhere
flop like
else.
that now. You
did.
started off
I
this
just did
podcast
it.
talking about how it's called X and not cross.
Are you going to
can't
go against the
flip-flop
word
like
of
this.
Shuhei Yoshida? You can't go against
Absolutely,
the
I
word of
will.
Shuhei Yoshida. No.
I-
Absolutely, I will.
His disapproving look, I could have sworn, turned a little bit into a smile that time around when he showed it. He looked
Well,
a
the
little
shoe,
bit happier.
the shoe executive photo is very much like in the Haunted Mansion. Like the eyes kind of follow you wherever you go.
Oh,
like
it does.
You
You
don't,
can
it's
cover
one of
one
those
eye.
things. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, it's X, O, triangle, square.
I
That's
go
the ranking,
opposite. I go X. Honestly, I go clockwise. X, square, triangle, circle.
I'm
That's where I
right.
go.
I'm right there with you, Bless. I love it.
Wow. You hate
The
to see
time
it.
is ours, old man.
Are we putting out a poll? How are we going to settle this once and for all?
No, well,
No?
everybody can write in. I'll put it. I'll go to the forum right now on patreon.com/psilove or no, patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, and I'll put it in there. I have hyperlink January. Barrett, hold on. Siri, remind me in 2 hours to make the thing. She's doing it, checking with reminders.
Okay. Added.
Thank you very much. And that's when I'll go and I'll add it and everything will be fine.
She's going to tell you to do the thing. You had no idea what the fuck she's talking about.
I will remember this. This is the hill I will die on for the best controller button on the PlayStation controller, whether it be the DualSense or the DualShock. But enough about all that, ladies and gentlemen. Many of you might be here for the first time, so let me tell you, this is PSI Love You XOXO. Each and every week, Blessing and I come together to nerd out about all things PlayStation. If you like that, you can head over to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, where of course you can write in to be part of the show, like next week when you'll make the argument for your button rankings and why, of course, Square should be at the bottom of the list, not number 2 on anybody's list. That's crazy talk. Doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Circle number 2?
Yeah.
All right, basic.
Oh,
It's basic.
reliable. It's basic because it's reliable because you use it. Think about it today.
There's no personality to that
I
list
want you thinking
whatsoever.
about this when you use your PlayStation for the next week, Blessing. How many times you're using X and Circle?
I'm using it a lot. I'm using Circle a lot, but like,
Told you.
for the boring shit, Circle's always a boring button.
It's getting it
Cancel out.
done.
Sweet.
Oh my God, this isn't high school. You
Let's
don't want
cancel
like
out
the
of this
exciting,
menu
crazy,
because I accidentally
you're the
opened it up.
partner.
That's exciting. You know what's exciting? Triangle or square in whatever context. I'm shooting shit with triangle sometimes.
Sometimes
I'm
we're
slicing
usually
shit
not
with
using
triangle.
shoulder buttons because again,
Now I'm
we've
using
evolved.
shoulder buttons.
We've
but on
evolved
the PS2,
past
I would have used square a lot to shoot shit.
triangle and
But
square.
now I'm hacking. I'm slashing with square nowadays.
It's got to be like when our ancestors' tails fell off, and they're like, "We don't need these anymore." That's what triangle and square is, and I've evolved beyond it. You know what I mean? Plus, we saw that thing last week with the crazy long fingers to how we could evolve to hold controllers. You saw that, right? And it's like this, and it's all like creepy and weird.
No, I missed out on that one.
Well, I'll definitely send you some of the slash fic I have on.
That sounds terrifying.
Patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Of course, beyond just that, you can write in with your questions, comments, concerns, everything under the PlayStation sun, like so many of you did for today's Returnal review. Thank you so very much. Of course, over on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, you can get each and every episode ad-free. You can get it with the exclusive post show we do each and every week, and usually only on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. You can watch as we record the show live. Sadly, because of embargoes, no live recording today, but you'll have to wait just to yell about buttons later at us. Of course, if you have no bucks to toss our way at patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, it's no big deal. You can head over to youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, usually every Tuesday, 6 a.m. Pacific time, unless, like right now, there's some kind of crazy embargo to work around. Of course, it's also on podcast services, roosterteeth.com. No matter where you get PS I Love You XOXO, please like, subscribe, share. If you're on the podcast services, leave a little rating and review. It really helps us out as we continue to bring in more and more Kind of Funny best friends. Some housekeeping for you. If you missed it, again, this is going to be an episode all about Returnal. And we'll do other PlayStation too, because, of course, there's a gigantic PlayStation week of news. If you missed Returnal stuff, though, Blessing over on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames and Raj put up a great video preview of Returnal, which is Blessing, actually. How early were you in your playthrough there? That's like your first couple hours, right?
Yeah, it was probably my first. I'd actually played a lot of it by that time, so I probably played like 6 to 7 hours. But I could only talk about the first 2 biomes because of what the preview guidelines were. And I didn't even make it past the first biome by the time I put out that preview. I'd played that first biome a lot because the game is difficult. But yeah, I was quite a bit into the game by that time.
So if you want to see some Returnal stuff and get a basic spoiler-free rundown, of course, this review will be spoiler-free in here in a second. You can go to youtube.com/kindoffunnygames to watch that. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Mick, a.k.a. @Denanobiologist, Tom Bach, Elliot, James Hastings, Sancho West Gaming, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, and Trent Berry, and Tyler Ross. Today we're brought to you by Upstart, Fitbod, and Dr. Squatch. But we'll talk about that later. For now, let's begin the show with topic of the show. It is time to review Returnal, the latest game from Housemarque, of course, creators of so many amazing PlayStation games. Resogun, Dead Nation, Super Stardust HD, the list goes on. You might know it from Outland, which was everywhere. This is their latest foray. It is a roguelike game. We have seen so much of it before. It was a game, the more we saw, the more I was like, what is this going to end up being? Blessing, you have put considerable time into Returnal. How many hours?
28 hours.
28 hours, ladies and gentlemen. Blessing, how do you like Returnal?
I really love this game. I've been addicted to it over the last week of playing it. It was a surprise, but also one that I think should have been slightly expected given Housemarque's pedigree as a studio, because they have worked on the games you mentioned, right? Like Super Stardust, Nex Machina, Resogun. And Resogun is the one I'm most familiar with. But I know people who love Nex Machina and a lot of their other games.
Did you not love Dead Nation? Did you not play a lot of Dead Nation?
I played a little bit of Dead Nation. I couldn't get into it really.
Okay.
And I didn't even try out Alienation is them also, right? It's the same type of game.
Yeah, that was.
I didn't try that one out even.
2016.
But yeah, like they have a really good pedigree of titles, and I think me and you have had the discussion on the show before of like, all right, where are our hype levels for Returnal, given that it is a $70 game and it is Housemarque doing a game of this scope and size for the first time, and are we into this? What they've shown for story so far, it's been in that weird place of it was at the PlayStation 5 presentation in June, and because of quarantine and how everything's been over the last year, we didn't really get the chance to preview it at all, meaning that nobody really had hands-on impressions that weren't PlayStation.
Well, the PlayStation vlog had an exclusive hands-on impression.
The PlayStation blog had a preview that everybody went, all right, well.
what a huge get for them.
But yeah, it's been this thing of like, all right, we're looking forward to this game because it's Housemarque and because it looks like it could be fun, but you don't really have any hands-on impressions to base that off of. And so when it came in and I started it, I was looking forward to it, and I was like, cool, I know it's gonna be a roguelike, so hopefully this hits, and it immediately hit. Like it immediately felt good to play. There's a lot we can touch on.
And so where I'd like to start from is the top. Obviously, PS I Love You. I know we have a dedicated audience that comes back each and every week. Thank you so much, no matter where you get the show. But I'm sure for this one, more people are coming in than usual, and maybe they don't know everything about not only Housemarque, but like? What is a roguelike, and what are some examples, Blessing?
Yeah, so there's roguelikes and roguelites, which are basically very similar types of games, but essentially how you boil them down are, and people of course have played Hades and Dead Cells and Rogue Legacy and similar types of games, but if you haven't, basically the whole setup is that you are doing you are playing through this game in runs, and when you die, you start back from the beginning of the game. So in Hades, the whole premise in Hades is that like you're playing what's his name, Agrius. I think it's Agrius.
Hot boy.
Garrett, is that right?
Hot emo boy.
You're playing as hot emo boy, who's the son of Hades, and you're going through you're trying to make it out of hell.
Escape hell, yeah.
You're trying to escape hell, and every single time you die, you start from the very beginning. And like the same thing in Dead Cells, same thing in Rogue Legacy, and also the same thing in Returnal. The thing that makes it a roguelite versus a roguelike, and this is a very broad explanation. I'm sure there's more details. That
you could totally go into this if you wanted to.
But basically, like in a roguelite, the basic thing of it is that you're carrying forward progression through each run, and so you're keeping things like items and leveling up and all that stuff. Like there's certain permanent elements that carry through, and in roguelikes, typically you're starting from the ground up fresh each time. And so this is I believe they describe it as a roguelite, and I guess you can kind of go back and forth in terms of what it is, but that details don't matter. Essentially, you are going through the game in runs, dying, and then starting back from the beginning, and the levels are randomized or procedurally generated in some sort of way. And so you have a bunch of different rooms that you're going through in the play in Returnal, and they're mixed and matched in ways so that every single time you're going through the path you're taking is different. The world is different.
Sure. So you're never 100% sure what's around the next corner, but like you will go into rooms and be like, I'm to the point now of playing it. So like, let me finish this thought. I'm to the point now of playing it where I run through that first biome and I'm like, oh, this is the room where the weird starfish dude is going to come around the corner. So I got to get ready to shoot him and be angled up. Like it's procedurally generated in the way the rooms are. You open the door, what you're going to get next, but you do recognize rooms after a while of like, oh, this is what's going to happen here. And
sometimes enemy placement will be different. And there's like a bunch of different randomized elements too within the rooms also.
Of course, we haven't even gotten into augmentations and parasites and everything else that can go on. So you said 28 hours, right? Or did I
28 hours, correct?
28 hours, right? My game clock right now is at 7 hours. Of course, I was moving last week, and it was a Herculean task that had me. I was like so stupid. I was like telling people like, oh yeah, at nighttime I'll turn on the PlayStation. I'll be playing stuff. I'll be doing whatever. And at like 9 o'clock, 9:30, I was exhausted. I went to bed. So I am way behind on Returnal. I'm 7 hours in, and I'm at that point right now where I got it when I first started it, and like rogue likes for me, right? Or rogue games in general. I'm just gonna I always trip over light and like. In general, for me, I love the idea and find it harder in practice to fall in with them. I always talk about Rogue Legacy, which I adored and played that wheels off of and had such a great time. But even Hades, something that I played in early access when it came to Epic Game Store. And then when it launched on Switch, I was super excited. But I did a few runs, and it's nothing against the game, which is fantastic and deserves all the acclaim and awards it's won. I just wasn't in the mood for it and moved on. Like, I always talk about, like, I love story and I love progression and I love the feeling of leveling up and getting stronger and seeing, more damage and yada, yada. Like Returnal dropping and getting to start it really in earnest over this weekend. It was that thing where I'd been during the move, jumping in, maybe trying to do like 15, 20 minutes, a run, see what it's all about. And I was enjoying it, but I was watching on Twitter as the preview embargo lifted, right? Like you flipping for it, Khalif flipping out for it, Parris flipping out for it, and Parris kept putting up tweets about like how he couldn't wait, he's dreaming of his next run, and yada, yada, yada. And I wasn't having that. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, obviously I enjoy what I'm doing. I think the gameplay is cool, but I'm not finding it like that. And it really was just a slow fuse, I think, for me, because it's this weird thing that the more I play it, the more it pumps my teeth down my fucking throat and punishes me. And it's that weird thing of getting beaten by it and then literally being like wanting more of it. Like I want more of that. And so yesterday was, I had a early afternoon, I guess, or whatever. So I had like 3 or 4 hours during the workday that I could actually sit there and play it. And it was that having a great time with it, getting punished by it, starting back from square one, trying to build back out, trying to, what's going to randomly drop, how many different parts of the currency am I going to get to then be able to get a new upgrade or a new thing on this run to feel more powerful. And it was last night, right before I went to dinner, that I had the run where it was the one run where everything clicked into place. All the systems I've learned have clicked into place. I, I finally got my melee ability that I knew was coming and I knew was going to open up the game. I got that, got to the World 1 boss, lost on the, second wave of them or whatever, right? But ended it and felt like I was on cloud 9. And it's like, that's when I knew the game had me. And I think obviously my desire to play throughout the past week of it and go back to it like, oh yeah, cool. I hadn't had that like light bulb, I got to play this game, the Parris tweet kind of thing until last night. Once it all paid off and I had that euphoria, still losing, still not getting out of the first biome, right? That was when I was like, oh shit, fuck, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm in that play. I by 6 hours in, by the time I was doing my first preview, I had gotten to the place where I started obsessing about it. Yeah. Because it is so gratifying in the way that you want a roguelite to be gratifying, where you keep making it further and further in the run. And there are so many systems that are layered on top of each other in the game. And the more and more you learn them, the more and more I'm like, okay, I got this. All right. Weapon, like for example, right, there's weapon proficiency. And basically what that is over the course of playing, you are, I believe with each kill, and then there's also pickups that'll level up your weapon proficiency. And that'll make it so that the next weapons you find will be leveled up. And so you start off at 1, and then once you get your weapon proficiency to 3 or 5 or whatever, that'll then mean you are finding weapons at that level. And
you're always going to find a weapon at that level or above.
Yeah, and that plays a huge part into how strong you are and how well you do in the game, along with the adrenaline system, which is a system where every 3 kills you get in the game, you level up in adrenaline. And this is 3 kills you get without getting hit, I should specify.
Yeah.
You level up in adrenaline, and with each level you up yourself, that then gives you boosts in abilities. And so that might mean that your reload or overload bar is bigger for when you reload your overheated item. You have to like reload in a certain square, and that'll then
it's active reload, right? It's like Gears, if you ever played that, where the little meter goes and you have to hit at the right time to reload faster, or sit there and wait for the whole animation.
Exactly. And so often at adrenaline level 1, that'll then up that bar. Adrenaline level 2 might make it so that your weapon is stronger. Adrenaline level 3 might make it so that you are doing additional fires along with your standard gunfire for your weapon. And so there's that, which will play a huge part once you start to understand that more. There's alt fire, which is basically you have your regular fire, regular standard fire for your gun. And it's a really cool dual sense thing, because when you aim in Returnal, pressing L2, the adaptive triggers will go down halfway for it. And if you press L2 all the way, if you pull through, it'll activate your alt fire, which is basically an ability, like a special fire ability that you can pull off that'll do more damage,
but it needs to recharge after the fact.
Yeah, exactly. And after you use it, it'll have to recharge after the fact. And so that's when you pull through an L2. But then when you regularly press halfway, which it has a lock in there for the adaptive triggers that'll stop you from pulling full way if you don't want to. That's how you do your standard fire. And so there's that. And there's a whole bunch of different stuff layered on there. But for me, the more and more I played Returnal, and the more and more I understood the systems, the more and more I was like, fuck, okay, I just have to be able to make everything play together the right way so I can feel leveled up and powerful enough to make it through. And you make it through more and more each time, and it feels so good.
Let me bring in Jake Bakes Cakes, wrote into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, just like you can, to be part of the show. And says, is the loop rewarding? For a roguelike to work, I want to feel like I'm constantly making progress or getting stronger, even if it's an incremental change. I've heard Returnal is hard as hell, so am I going to feel defeated and quit, or will the loop hook me? Again, we're in very different spots, but for right now, what I would tell from my 7 hours with it, I think the loop is going to hook you. If you're into that kind of thing, if you want to feel progression, it's there, but it's also the thing of, it's not progression in the idea that, oh, I died, I'm starting my next run, and because I did X, Y, and Z, I have a bigger health bar permanently. It's not that kind of thing. For me, what it is I died, and it's because I ran into this new enemy, so I know how they shoot and how they attack. And also, I found this new artifact that, did this. There's also malignant, what do they call them? The things that are
like ether.
Yeah, but then there's like the things you get that are like, it'll give you some kind of buff, but it'll also give you a debuff.
Parasite.
And so, the parasites. And like, you start to figure out all of that, and it's understanding more how all the systems work. And that was, again, the moment I had there, where when I finally got the melee ability unlocked, which does stay with you, it was the idea that, okay, cool, all these areas that I had seen before that were inaccessible are now accessible. And what that meant for me as somebody who had been like, getting closer and further, or sometimes not, dying and restarting, to get beat, and to know that I now had the key to get into the boss's room to take on the final boss of the biome, right? It was that idea of like, oh shit, now that I have this blade, I'm going to use the teleport system that I really haven't used that much to teleport back to all the different rooms, find all of those different areas, bust in them, because when you get the health regen packs there, right, if you don't need them, you can get 3 of them, and that'll then increase your health bar on that run. So it was this idea of like, holy shit, now that I understand this system in this context, there's a whole nother reason for me to go back and do it. Let alone that I was also kind of silly, and I was like, oh, the melee thing is going to open up how to do this, and it'll kind of open up everything. When in reality, it opened up one kind of door I can open. And I know as I look around, there's at least 2 more that it doesn't do. So it's like, okay, now to think about playing even further into the game, getting those other abilities and coming back here, it's that kind of gameplay loop of strategery, right? Where are you going to go with it? How are you going to do it?
Yeah, and that in my first impressions, I compared the game to 3 games: Control, Hades, and Metroid. But that is where the Metroid comes in. Is you're exploring this alien planet and then setting all that stuff. There's similarities, but in that Metroidvania aspect of it, of coming to a door or finding a thing where I'm like, okay, I can't get through this right now, but I'm sure I'm gonna find something along the way.
Yet, but I will.
Yeah, that's gonna bring me back, and I think that's a really cool thing with the permanent items, because like when we come back to the conversation of roguelite versus roguelike, and again, that doesn't really broadly matter that much, but for this game, to Jake Bakes Cake's question here of, is the loop rewarding? I want to feel like I'm constantly making progress and getting stronger. For me, the answer is yes and no for the way that you're asking Jake Bakes Cakes.
Just call him Jake. Just call him Jake.
I'll just say Jake. For what Greg just mentioned about finding the sword or finding the melee item, which is a sword, and finding different permanent items in the game, those are ways in which the game gives you that permanent progression and ways for you to not feel like you are retreading your steps each and every time you play. And there are things like, there are a couple items. I think really it's only probably the one other item being Ether. Ether is another collectible that you can pick up that will carry through. And basically what Ether does is there are items you'll find in the world that are malignant, meaning that if you pick them up, there's a chance they will malfunction you, which is a debuff that you'll be given. Ether helps cleanse that. And Ether, you can do multiple other things with Ether, but that's the main thing. You can carry Ether through multiple runs. But aside from that, like, you are starting from ground zero for the most part each time, and you will find times where in the after you find the melee ability, for example, in the first biome, I think there might be like one other permanent item, or maybe not, I forget, but after you find pretty much all the permanent items in that biome, you're pretty much like done in terms of permanent items, and you're stuck until you're able to get further enough in the game to where you're in the next biome and maybe find more permanent items there. But for me, I was stuck a lot in the game, and I was stuck.
What do you mean by stuck? Where you couldn't get like for me, it's like, do you mean like stuck in like a level and you look up and there's that orange light and I'm like, I know I need something like a grappling hook to get up there. I'm not sure if that's what I actually mean.
I mean stuck as in I've stopped making progress because I've found the permanent items that I need to find. I am not making progress anymore. Like I'll make it, let's say, an hour and a half into a run, I'm doing real good, and I die and I have nothing to show for it. That happens. That has happened to me a lot in this game. You know, by hour, I want to say 17 or 18 in the game, I had gotten all the way to the final boss, and I was doing real good. But I hadn't figured out what the strat was yet to defeat them. And so I was in that process of like, cool, what is exactly causing damage? I'm down. I got them down halfway. How am I doing that? And like I had figured it out. And by the time I figured it out, I was very low on health. And so I took one more hit. Yeah. My health was already screwed. I took one more hit and I got sent back to the beginning, and I had nothing to show for it. And so like,
but did you feel defeated by that? Like, was that like, that's my thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But like defeated, but also still motivated at the same time. Is that thing of the gameplay in the game is so good and so addicting that even though in that moment I was demoralized and I wouldn't beat the game for maybe like 9 more hours, I still felt motivated to go through because I knew everything I had to do. I knew I knew what the strat was. I knew by that time, like I got to make sure I level up early, so by the time I get to those later biomes, I'll be overpowered. I knew all the steps I needed to take, but it was just getting everything right and not letting myself die. And like I was dying a lot in the last probably 9 hours of me playing the game. I died a lot. And again, I had nothing to show for it aside from Ether, but Ether is valuable, but not that valuable in terms of
sure.
I
like
just put
there's
in
that
5 hours.
Yeah,
and
like
lost
there's
it.
outside a thing where you can exchange it on every run before you go in to get an artifact that you don't have or whatever, so you can scan it and then get a benefit off of that.
Yeah, but for me, it was punishing and it was demoralizing at times.
Yeah, and see, that's the would be my fear about it later on, but I feel so far it's done a good job of being the carrot on the stick and either feeling the man, I made it further than I have before, that's awesome, or feeling the what, I died there and that's totally on me. Like I shouldn't have picked up that perk at the cost of this and that was stupid. You know what I mean? Like I was doing the thing early on when I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in this game yet, and so I'm just gonna do everything. Like you come to those like infected chests, right? There's like usually 3 of them, and I was like, I'll just do them all, which then put a whole bunch of debuffs on me, and it also gave me stuff, but it was like trying to experiment around with that to where last night to get in there and have that great run and that great feeling, and it was very much like, all right, cool, I'm not picking up that, I'm not doing that, all right, my health is low, this will refill me, and I'm not using my dash, so what do I care if it's taken down 15% more? All right, did that, went through there, okay, I look over there and I see this like little cave with the little yellow, and I'm like, if I go in there, the floor is gonna fall out. Most times it's hey, here's a chest, here's some other thing you can get. Sometimes it's a big monster.
Sometimes it's an enemy that will destroy you.
And I'm like, I'm having too good of a run to fuck with that right now, so I'm not gonna. And it's like, that's where I'm at with it, where like I understand, like I think the reason games like this have turned me off in the past in a lot of ways is that I always want to keep moving to the next thing, and I always want to keep seeing the next biome, and I want to beat the boss and go on to the next boss and not fight the same thing over and over again. Here, Returnal's doing a good job for me personally of not making it about progressing the actual world, if that makes sense. It's not like I appreciate that Celine in this game, the character we're playing, is and I want to talk about the narrative for sure.
Yeah, we don't even talk about story at all.
Exactly. She's aware of what's happening. She knows that she keeps running into different versions of herself. Even when I wasn't, and this is early again, I know you're so much further and done so much more in this game. When I feel like I'm not making progress, where it was like, where the fuck is this melee weapon? How have I not found it? Yada. I'm still running into her other corpses. I'm still running into weird rooms of the, native alien beings on this world, and like getting story that way that is keeping me invested in, even though I'm not progressing, feeling like I'm progressing because I'm getting tidbits about it.
Yeah, and that's something I want to shout out, because out of the major roguelike games that have come out over the last, I guess, generation of games that have come out and really been the ones to get appeal from people who probably usually wouldn't be into roguelites, right? I'm thinking of Dead Cells, I'm thinking of Rogue Legacy, I'm thinking of Hades. Those games, I think, all have elements that carry forward, whether it be currency, whether it be, I believe it was called Darkness in Hades, or in Dead Cells, you can buy certain upgrades that'll still carry you with you through runs. This game has been the most punishing in that aspect, where a lot of times you won't have stuff to show for, but there is a story here that I think is intriguing, and does a really good job of carrying you through the logs. And so when you start up the game, you're playing as Celine, you crash land on this planet, and the first thing you do is you find a corpse, and you're like, who is this scout? And then you turn the scout over, and like the implication is like, oh, it's you, because
you see she's in the same outfit and she has Celine written on her head.
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
Not her head, but like her helmet.
On her helmet, yeah. And you pick up the gun, and she's like, my firearm, and it's like, okay, that's when like that's the first instance of, oh, this is a looping thing. Like, what's going on here? And as you play, you get more and more clued in based on finding logs that are left by previous versions of Celine, which is a really cool way to tackle this roguelite storyline.
Let me bring in Norm Chacha, who writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames, just like you can, to be part of the show, and says, Housemarque are known for their great gameplay, but they haven't really done a game with any real narrative yet. So I want to ask you how you guys feel, or felt if you've beaten it by the time you record this, about the story. Has it kept you engaged throughout your playtime? Do you think the story overall is interesting? Is Celine a good character? Do the story and gameplay complement each other? I'm a big fan of Housemarque games, but the story is also really important to me in a game. So if Returnal manages to keep what makes their games great while adding a compelling story, it could be something really special. Like right now for me, that is always, like I just talked about, that is always the cherry on the sundae of what I'm doing. Where if I do run into one of the bodies or I do run into a different room, and like right now, like again, I'm so early. Like we've seen it in trailers, so this isn't a spoiler. That the house that's not supposed to be there, right? Like I still haven't found the key to open the house, and I know that the key is in the biome I'm in, and I feel like I'm doing a great job of exploring. But maybe I do a great job of exploring on one run and not on the next one, or and especially now that like, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, Bless. You know, I'm new to. Like I said, I got to the boss for the first time last night, and then probably did 3 runs after that, maybe 4. Once I get the boss the first time and find the key to open the boss door, now that's open permanently too, right? It feels like I'm getting there faster. Am I getting there fast? Okay.
That's the thing too, is like you get to skip certain steps that you were able to obtain before. And so once you beat the boss of the first biome, you won't even have to fight that boss anymore through subsequent runs, which is a way that you can kind of skip ahead.
And so like for me, like that I'm vibing with this game so hard right now because number one, it's challenging me, which I appreciate, but I'm feeling like it's a fair challenge. Like I don't feel like I'm just getting fucked into the ground. I'm getting fucked into the ground, but it's like I can do this. It's one of those things, and it's again. I guess I should save. I'll bring it in here, right? Let me just bring it right here. Bring it down here. Nathan Choquette wrote in and said, "Do you guys think Housemarque has managed to break free of their arcade genre history and create something new and special with Returnal, or is Returnal special because of their history and knowledge of arcade-like gameplay?" I think, obviously Housemarque's the studio, maybe you don't remember him from before, that infamously said arcade is dead. Like we're moving on from that. We're not doing that. We're starting this other game that went out into beta, right? And then they stopped it to come over and do this one. Even though you could look at this and be like, oh, it's a roguelite. Oh, it's not an arcade game like something like Nex Machina, something like Dead Nation. This game smacks of Housemarque and who they are and their lineage throughout. And I think that's one of the reasons, yes, it's so incredibly special in what they're doing. It is the idea that I am being challenged. It is a bullet hell. I am running around and getting the power-ups and trying to have everything ape off of each other and go the right way. And I think the fact that they have that combined with the story is why I can't get enough of it. Because again, when I fail, it's my fault usually. I haven't, there isn't something that's popped up where I'm like, oh, that was the cheapest fucking thing in the world, right? There's no thing that's personally screwed me over. It is like, oh man, I didn't know how that guy was going to attack. Oh, I didn't understand that, if I had that effect, like, there's ones where, I fucking took a stupid thing the other day, Bless, where I was like, oh, this will give me that. And then I went and did it. And then of course, every time I hit, they shot back at me automatically. And I was like, motherfucker, this is a stupid thing that was not, the con was not worth the pro. Like, it is a Housemarque game. I think the story they're telling here is incredibly interesting in the way they're telling it, and I want more of that.
Yeah, I really dig the story. It involves a lot of mystery, and I'm very curious to see how people take to that, because it feels like as Selena's putting the pieces together while collecting the logs and regaining her memory and doing all this different stuff, it also feels like you're putting together the pieces as the player. And so for the house sequences, like there is so much. It feels like it's meant to be both interpreted but then also put together like a puzzle.
Sure.
And I'm still in the place where even though I've beat the game, I'm still putting together the puzzle. I'm still trying to understand the things I saw, and I think that alone makes it interesting. But then also just the things that I have put together so far, I'm very into. I am asking myself, like, all right, what is going on with this planet? Like, what are the things what's going down here? What's up with like what's up with all the elements involved? It's hard to actually talk about the actual story because everything is shrouded in mystery, and I don't want to spoil anything. But I think they've done a really good job. And to the other question of like, is this Housemarque, is this game good because of where Housemarque is coming from with their arcade history, or is it them stepping away and doing something that feels bigger? I think it is both. I think it is Returnal. I think is great because Housemarque knows how to do this type of game based off of their previous games. I think the adrenaline system especially speaks to that, where it's a system that is all about, hey, don't get hit, move as much as you want, right? If you remember
score multiplayer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like if you remember Resogun, like if you get hit, you're done, and you can have shield and all this stuff. And there's shield in Returnal also that you can equip every now and then. It has a lot of those same elements of a shoot 'em up game that is from Housemarque, but it is them translating that into something that feels new and fresh for them in a way that feels way bigger than anything they've done before, and in a way that I think for them is going to be a breakout success. I think Returnal is going to sit so well with people because one is coming off of Hades last year, which is a similar type of game, and I think Hades, for it being the game of the year from many different outlets that it was, I think so many people have been exposed to Hades and are going to look at Returnal, understand immediately what it is, play it, and get a lot of the same type of satisfaction from it, because not only are they getting that repeated gameplay, but they're also getting that with really cool story elements filtered into it that makes it feel like something that is bigger than just a roguelike that you keep just playing over and over again, right? It's that plus this big budget and this big story and all this stuff into it.
I think that's what's going to be interesting about it, right? Is that I think for a lot of gamers, Hades took roguelites and put them in front of them, front and center. And even if you don't have a Switch or didn't play that, you know more about it. And you saw Hades, have a breakout year in terms of review scores and Metacritic and things like that, but also game awards and DICE awards and actually being on the map of like, hey, this game is really great. And so to have it come out on PlayStation 5, have it be an exclusive on PlayStation 5 when there aren't that many right now, right? This is one of the first big exclusives of the year for PlayStation. I think it's going to have a chance at breaking out. But I do want to ask a question about if it's being difficult will make it have a trouble performing in sales. But before then, ladies and gentlemen, he had to chauffeur his kids around, so he couldn't be here at the start of the show. Please welcome from the Kind of Funny XCast, Parris Lilly. Hello, Parris. You might be muted.
Might be muted.
Yeah, your mic, like you unmuted yourself in Discord, but like you still don't hear you. But
what about now?
Yeah, there he is. Hey, Parris Lilly.
No, how you guys doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing good, man.
No, I'm doing great, man. So obviously I'm catching the tail end of you talking about Returnal.
You're in the tail middle. I have a feeling we're going to go a long time about this
great,
game, brother.
This is perfect. So let me just say this off the top. I am not finished with the game, but I've never been more excited to be terrible at something.
Yep.
That's to me, that's the best way to describe it. I'm at the boss of the third biome.
Yeah.
And only yesterday did it really click to me on how to truly play Returnal. But I love it. I think the production value is fantastic. I think the way that it uses the DualSense is again fantastic. It's amazing.
We should stop and talk about that, because I don't think we talked about that as much. I talked about the adaptive triggers, Parris, and how they work well with the alt fire and how that works. But I got to shout out both the DualSense and the PlayStation Pulse headphones. The 3D audio in the game is phenomenal, and maybe the first time I've actually noticed it in a way where I was like, damn, this is actually really good. It gives you a really good sense of positioning, and the sound design in the game is incredible as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, because you even pointed this out on social media, but it's so true. Like, you can literally feel the individual raindrops that are hitting your character when you're controlling it. I just think the atmosphere that's created in the various biomes so far, like it has a mix of sci-fi horror to it, along with I don't know, maybe like Dune. I think that might be a good analogy as well. But yeah, I'm loving it. I'm so happy for Housemarque to have the opportunity to make this AAA experience, and it's a roguelike, which is not necessarily my thing. I'm not huge on those.
So why is this one hitting? Why is this one hitting where others haven't?
Again, I think it's the combination of the high production value. It's like as frustrated as I may get after hours of preparation and having to start over somewhat, I'm enjoying it at the same time. I'm liking this world. I'm liking the mystery of what this story has been telling me so far, and it's compelling me to take like again, I'll give you the perfect example. A few days ago, I even tweeted where I just said Christ with an exclamation point, because I went for like 2.5 hours. I thought I was doing everything right. I'm like, I'm getting prepared. I'm doing this. And then I'm going to the second biome boss. And I did the dumbest thing I could have done. I was completely ready to go. I saw a side door and I go,
oh no.
Let me go in here. There might be one more thing to help me. The door locks behind me, and the mini boss in there had an overshield that I could not penetrate, and I died. And I was like, I have to walk away. I need to walk away from this.
It's so heartbreaking, dude. I spent my entire Saturday morning. I probably started the game up at 9 a.m. because it was the first thing I wanted to do when I woke up. That's how addicted I was to it. Started it at 9 a.m. By 1 p.m. I was doing so well in a run, and I think this might have been the time where I got to the final boss in the game, and I was like, "Fuck, man! All right, let's do this." And I died, and it felt so heartbreaking. And that's happened multiple times where I'll be multiple hours into a run, and I'll do the exact same thing, where I'll go into a room that I'm not supposed to, get faced with a mini boss, and they'll defeat me. And again, that's been my last 9 hours of the game, but I was still like making my way up to finally beating it. The whole time I was still super into it. Like I was still having a blast, even though I was hella frustrated the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. Like there's definitely a frustration to it, but that's what roguelikes are. That's the whole, spin on those. But this one, for whatever reason, is like I would walk away from a while and I'm thinking about it the entire time. I'm like, okay, what am I doing wrong? What is the next approach I need to do? And like I said, I think yesterday it kind of clicked for me on how I need to prepare my character, how I need to,
see, and that's the thing.
Rooms.
We were talking about it before you got here, right? Bless is beating it 28 hours, and I'm 7 hours in, and I just last night got to the Biome 1 boss a few times and did it, right? And it was that moment for me of like, oh, now that I have melee and I understand how this works. Right. I don't even want to ask you what you're finding in the third biome that you're like, oh, this is how I need to do it, because this whole game is about learning, right? It is about that journey.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And that would probably be my one thing. It's like, I don't want to spoil this experience for anyone. We've teased it a little bit on social media, but I think it's something that people need to sit down with a controller and experience for themselves, because that's part of the fun, is figuring it out, understanding this world. Like I just hit start, just went in, and I'm discovering everything as I go along. I didn't have any, preview tips, nothing. It's like, I'm just playing the game as it is. And I think that's the best part of Returnal. Like I said, to me, like you brought up the 3D audio, the DualSense, this, Miles Morales did it a little bit, but to me, this almost feels like the first one, and obviously Astro's Playroom with the DualSense, but it's putting all the pieces together of what the PlayStation 5 experience is. And yeah, I mean, it's great. And I don't even know if you've brought this up yet, but I've had people ask me, and I've obviously not been able to say it, do I think this is worth $70?
My dog Nick 96 from Massachusetts writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames and says, hello, I'm so excited for Returnal. I've been a fan of Housemarque since Super Stardust HD on PS3. They were the first trophies I earned, got all of them, plus the DLC ones later on. It did not have a platinum, however. For me, Returnal will be the first $70 base game I purchase. I bought the deluxe edition of Miles Morales at launch, but that also came with Spider-Man Remastered. I haven't picked up Demon's Souls yet, and everything else was either cheaper or free on PlayStation Plus. Did Housemarque do a good job making a AAA full-priced game, as opposed to the smaller arcade styles they are more well known for? I'm not worried since I trust Housemarque. I'm just curious on your thoughts of this being a full-priced game. Parris, Lily, the floor is yours.
100%. 100% it is definitely worth the $70. I know that is obviously on the high end, but this is a AAA experience. This is, like I said, putting together the complete package of what the PlayStation 5 can offer. The only caveat is if roguelikes are not your thing, then there might be some hesitation there, because it's not necessarily my thing. But even for me, I feel like it won me over. Like, okay, I get it. I understand how it works. I understand the frustration that goes into it, but that's also the fun too at the same time. And that sense of accomplishment. Like, you have no idea. The first time I beat the first biome boss, you thought I was probably throwing a party in this house, because that's how excited I was.
I was telling Bless before you got here, getting to him, I was like, and losing, I was like, I still did it. I still got there. I'm stoked to see what happens next. You have those breakthrough moments, right?
And then even going back into the biomes and things that you couldn't get to before, like, wait, how do I do that? Oh, now I have this, so I can go. And like, you're discovering new things at the same time. So yeah, it's absolutely worth $70.
Blessing Adeoye Jr. from kindafunny.com.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, I think we answered a question earlier about like the things you're carrying forward in the game and how punishing is it, and like, am I going to get frustrated because I'm losing everything and all that stuff. One of the things that you do carry forward, and this might sound corny, but it is skill. Like, the more you play the game, like like we've been saying, the more you learn about its systems and understand how you're supposed to play it. And the other day, we got to stream the first 45 minutes on Twitch, and I made it through I made it through and beat the first boss from a fresh save. Let me point out, because we had to start from a fresh save for the embargo. And within a 45-minute stream, I was able to make it through and beat the first boss. And that's because of how well the game, or how good of a job the game does at just like giving you the muscle memory and giving you the understanding of, hey, yeah, if you want to do good, start leveling up early, start figuring out like the ways to defeat each enemy. Like there is a learning to even each of the rooms you go into in Returnal that is going to grant you an understanding to do better every time, and that really is a thing that carries forward. And I even to chime in on the $70 question. I agree.
Please
with
don't.
100%.
Yeah, I want, as somebody who's the furthest and has beaten the game, I want your.
Yeah, I think 1000%. Like it, the conversations we've had before on the show about the $70 thing with Returnal, I think comes back to, okay, we see the trailers from PlayStation presentation. How's the story going to be? Is it going to have a good story? Is it going to feel like a bigger game? And playing it, I think it 1000% does. I think I actually want Parris' opinion on this because I'm not talking to anybody about story for Returnal, just because again, it's so shrouded in mystery, and then also I think it is so up for interpretation. And what you kind of take from it. But Parris, for you, did the story hit? Are you into the story of Returnal?
Yeah, I am. I'm into the story, and like I said, I get those late 70s sci-fi horror vibes from this, and I love that there's a mystery attached to it, and you're starting to discover and understand it as you go. And obviously, you've completed it, so you know how it ends. But I'm engaged, 100%. You know.
Yeah, it reminds me. I mentioned this in my first impressions that it reminds me of Control meets Metroid in that sense. And I'm not going to say like the story is as good as Control's, because I don't think it's as good as Control's, but I do think it touches a lot of the same types of like a lot of those things I enjoy about Control's story. I also enjoy about how Returnal tackles its, where I am like, okay, what is this planet? What is going on? There's a lot of imagery. There's a lot of symbolism, and I think all that stuff is really cool to kind of get to the bottom get to the bottom of. And even just from a pure aesthetic standpoint, I think that stuff is really good. Like it looks striking in almost every room you go into. Like there's something that pulls my eye, whether it is the enemies or whether it is giant floating things in the air or whatever it is. And to shout out the PS5 thing, because Parris made a good point about how the game feels like a PS5 game and is a great showcase of the console. I think I want to shout out is how well the game performs, but then also how all the particle light effects in every single room just look mad. They look beautiful. It is like watching the 4th of July, but like on 10. It is amazing looking with all of the bullet hell stuff, all of the shots that you do. The alt fires usually have different colors. It is stunning.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, again, an hour in, obviously, I think 7 hours in, Blessing's opinion carries way more weight than me, one biome in. But even from what I've played in my 7 hours, like, I think it's worth $70. This is a PlayStation 5 game. And, I think it was Monday's Kind of Funny Games Daily where you and Tim were talking about how Tim's no longer going to turn off, or never was maybe, but he was making the claim that no one should turn off the haptics on PlayStation 5 games anymore because it's actually how the experience is meant to be, and yada, yada, yada. And Returnals, I haven't had a problem with. It's more the games where I have to fight through to pull a trigger or whatever. I'm like, this actually is this is painful. Yeah. Returnals, you would talk about it being $70. You talk about it being a PlayStation 5 game. I think it is that idea that clearly so much love went into making the controller feel so good for raindrops, making that it be a different experience of holding it. Last night, I died in a run and I was like, oh God, I need a break, and went to my phone and was dicking around on Twitter or TikTok or whatever. And it was like 15 minutes later where I realized that I was just sitting there listening to the rain in Returnal. Yeah. Like you talk about the sound of it, right? It was just on the sound bar there and like the ambient music outside of your shit before you start your next run. And I was like, fuck, like, it is top to bottom, like such a cared for experience. And so I think for people who were like, wow, Housemarque's previous games have been these arcade experiences. They've been these smaller downloadable titles. Like, is this just that being sold for $70? It is not. Like, there's tremendous, I think, production value put into this game. Whether we're talking about effects, we're talking about sound, talking about controls. Like, it's
it
awesome.
made my DualSense vibrate in ways that I didn't know it could. Honestly, like, there was one where I think I had when I posted a video on Twitter with the raindrops thing that ended up blowing up of me with my DualSense on my desk. And I had Returnal pulled up, but I was doing other stuff. I think I was working on a doc or something, and I just heard raindrops, and it was that thing of, oh wait, that's my DualSense, and that's why I took the video and posted it to Twitter. But there have been other examples of that while playing Returnal, where I'll have the controller on my desk, and I'll hear like a like sound, and I'm like, is that coming from my DualSense? That is wild. The way in which they've really catered this thing, and I think it is a combination at times of the DualSense vibration, the haptic feedback, and the speaker.
Sure.
Like oftentimes speaker functions and controllers annoy me whenever like a sound or whatever would come out the speaker. But a lot of the time, I think they've done a really good job in this game of making that stuff happen in a way that enhances the experience more than gets in the way or annoys you. It really does feel quote unquote immersive in a way that I find really cool for Returnal.
I have a question here from Ramon, who writes into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, just like you can, and says, good morning, Greg, blessed and now Parris. With the roguelite term being used to describe Returnal, as well as being difficult, do you see this as a deterrent to how it will perform in sales? PlayStation has killed it with their first-party sales over the last few years, and it would be a shame if the genre and difficulty of the game undersell it. I've enjoyed From Software games and roguelites such as The Binding of Isaac, but will casual players give it a fair shake? Thanks for all the content you provide, and take care. Blessing, do you think the difficulty is going to get in the way of the success of Returnal?
No, because I think it's part of the experience. Like, the game it's not unfriendly. Like, I think when you're first jumping into Returnal, like I think there is a point where you're kind of supposed to die, which is when you drop down in like a pit area, and then a larger alien attacks you, and I that thing killed me twice now. With my fresh save that I did on the Twitch stream and my original playthrough, that thing killed me. But I do think the game does a really good job of slowly dealing out mechanics and teaching you how to play, and it's easily understandable. It is a third-person shooter. You're taking out things. Like, it isn't cryptic in the way that even Souls games can be cryptic, where you're like, all right, what does this do? Who do I talk to for this? Like, you don't have the questions in Returnal that you would have from a Souls game. Returnal is pretty straightforward, and I think it is, once you start to get even further in the game, where it starts to become punishing. I think at first it's not as punishing, especially when you're in the first biome, because your mission at that point is just make it out of the first biome. It's once you are, I think, hooked in, and then you start making it to the later biomes, where it starts to be like, all right, now we're gonna start kicking your teeth in, and that becomes a thing. But at the same time, the game, at the same time though, the game is really rewarding. Like, there are points where if you can get really lucky and RNG can go in your favor. And for me, by the time I got to biome 3, and we keep using the word biome, but to make it clear, biomes are basically like the different levels. Like, you're going from biome to biome. By the time I got to biome 3, I pretty much cruised through for the most part, and I beat that boss my first time because I was so leveled up. And there is such a sense of I think a sense of power that comes with that as a player, and I think that's going to speak to people a lot once you get to that point, or once you have those moments.
I think to add on to what Blessing is saying is, spot on. I don't think the price point, or the difficulty, I should say, is going to deter people from wanting to pick this up, because it is a part of the experience, having it being difficult, having it being punishing in certain parts, because that's how, again, I truly think I had a transformative moment yesterday where I understood how to play this game and how to approach these encounters. And a lot of it just has to come down to patience. You have to be patient. You have to slow down. You have to explore. But RNG does play a part in this, depending on literally the kind of weapon roll that you get as you're leveling your character up, to when you do go take on some of these mini bosses and the actual bosses of these biomes later on in the game. I think it's great. I think if anything, it's gonna take people out of their comfort zone. Anyone that isn't used to these type of games, it's going to take you out of your comfort zone. But like Blessing said, I think it does it in a very friendly way, where it's not literally beating you down the second you pick up the controller. It's allowing you to kind of ease into the experience. But once the game, I could tell in Biome 3 that the game now expects me to understand how to play it. And no F's are given at that point, right? So they are coming at you at that point, and they will punish you for mistakes, where Biome 1 is a little more forgiving in that, because it's almost like the tutorial to get you to understand this world, to understand the mechanics of it, so that later on, Now you need to apply those lessons learned into some of these encounters. And again, I think I said House Marquee earlier. It's House Mark, right? I always say
it's House Mark.
It's House Mark. I apologize for
You're
that.
an X-bot. It's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know. X-bot, right?
You've never had to worry about this in your life.
But yeah, I think this is a fantastic game coming from them, and it should be celebrated. I think when people pick it up, they'll be pleasantly surprised.
I think it's gonna. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I also come back to the fact that I think Hades has prepared people pretty well for this type of game. You know, like Hades it has a similar setup, right? Because it's also a roguelite, and it's a game that'll kick your teeth in a lot. And I don't think that hindered Hades at all. In fact, if anything, I think it supported that game in terms of how people got addicted to it and wanted to get better with every run and wanted to continue to push forward and do all that stuff. I think you'll see a similar reaction to Returnal based off of the fact that Hades has set people up to understand what this is.
And I think exactly. I think that's the biggest thing is that it's more about understanding it, right? Where the difficulty in getting your teeth kicked in. Yeah, I'm talking about losing to a boss, but I think the same way I'm talking about losing and starting over from the beginning speaks to me in the way I think of arcade games, where it is, you know, when you die and you don't continue, right? You don't put your coins. If you start up again, you start from the beginning. And those games, right, haven't had a problem finding an audience. It's the idea that I think it is primed for a few different reasons, Returnal to be a big success. And it is, yes, that Hades is on the tip of everybody's tongue and has been in, you know, some way. It hasn't been on PlayStation. So if a PlayStation audience wants that, they're there. You know, PlayStation 5, of course, people are starving for PlayStation 5 games. That's here right now. And I think the fact that what this game does so well is the water cooler moment that we all love about gaming, where legitimately, you know, all three of us could sit down right now, start a new thing, and the world would be different in so many different ways that when we'd sit down and talk about it afterwards, there'd be this conversation, right? And it would be this idea. And so as podcasts and Twitch streams continue to go and show this game, and again, the goal of the game not even being rolling credits, right? The goal of your run is to be better than your last run, to get further than you did last time. It's about redefining what success in a game or this game looks like. And, you know, I think back to when I finally got to start playing over the weekend, and I immediately like hit up Bless, right? And I was like, oh, dude, the shotgun, this is where it's at. And you're like, really? I like X, Y, and Z. And now I'm all about the carbine, right? And it's like, if I can find that, we are going to have a great run. We are going to have a great time. And if not, I'll pass up the shotgun now to stick with my pistol, just because of the enemies I'm facing. The way I'm playing them is that I need to be quicker, faster, and I want to be further back. I need to shoot in all the time to pick up the stuff they drop. That's the currency. Oblites, yeah. I call them ooblets.
It's a weird name. But like,
you pick them up and get out. But yeah.
To your point about, like, you know, finding a favorite weapon, the thing I found too is that, you know, you mentioned loving the Spitball Blaster, which is the shotgun in the game, and that weapon was a key weapon for me in one of my later runs where you know, I needed something that could take out enemies in that way for the area I was in. The thing I started to learn was not to rely on a specific weapon, because when you get through and you start to I guess like level up weapons, you know, whether it's through weapon proficiency or whatever, and you get to different biomes. The thing I found that it took me a while. Actually, should I even? I'm not gonna reveal.
Don't
this.
do
You
it.
guys can discover it by yourself. But the thing I'll say is that different weapons can work really well for different situations.
I'm sure, Parris, you want to chime in too, but let me bring in a question from Danny that's in the same vein. Returnal might be my most anticipated game of the year because God of War Ragnarok sure is coming. Housemarque has made one of my favorite games of last gen in Nex Machina, and the idea of them making a roguelite is incredible. That being said, how's the build variety in this game? I got addicted to Hades last year in part because of how unique every run felt. Housemarque games have always had very high replayability, but does Returnal manage to provide the build diversity that nearly all great roguelites have?
I'd say yeah. The weapons come with their own properties when you pick them up, and I'm actually not 100% sure how this portion works, because it felt kind of deep in a way where I was like, I got so many other systems to worry about. I'll let this thing happen because I don't have to interact with it. But you'll have, when you pick up a weapon, if you go to your equipment menu and you look at it, there will be certain qualities that weapons have where it's like, okay, this weapon or this version of this shotgun has a larger or a further weapon range than traditionally, or this weapon does more power, like this carbine or whatever will do more power, but it shoots at a lower fire rate. And so like you have a lot of variety, not only between the different types of weapons, like the shotgun and the machine gun, all this stuff, but also when you are picking up the same type of weapon that might come with a different quality to it, which is really cool. And then also when we talk about the adrenaline level, the way that then also influences your weapon makes it different. And so you're almost picking up a different weapon every time you play, even though you are picking up like the standard pistol, the standard shotgun, the standard thing. All of them still feel different between playthroughs.
Yeah, I mean, spot on with that. That's why I was even saying before, RNG definitely plays a part in this as you're building out your character for your run. The other part to this would be the parasites that you can potentially get, and just the positive. Does the positive outweigh the negative, so to speak? So you have to think about that before you actually apply it, because maybe if you put it on, then you're gonna have to get something to get rid of it. So there's a lot of different things that go into it as you're building your character up. Like I can specifically think of one dumb moment I did where I, in a panic, because I'm running around the map, I picked up a parasite that took away 60% of my repair proficiency or whatever it's called, right?
Repair efficiency. That's
oh my
fucked
god,
up.
yeah. And then by the time I got to the boss, I could never get my health back up to where I needed, and of course I did. You know, so
Yeah.
little stuff like that. So you definitely have to pay attention to that, and obviously the different consumables that you'll get as well. Those play a huge part into you going into various encounters. So yeah, I would say the builds are pretty good.
A thing I'll throw in there too is that this game is less about finding the build that works for you and trying to commit to that build, and more so going with the flow and just making it work with whatever you find and trying to build on there. Because for me, there was one weapon that I loved in the game, and I tried to live and die by that weapon. It's the weapon that I responded to Greg with, of like, oh man, I love this one. I for the longest tried to always find that weapon and make it work with that weapon, but what that meant was, because of the RNG in each run, that just might not be the best weapon at the time. Because when it worked for me, the thing that worked for me was, one, I'm good with that weapon, but then also I had parasites and artifacts and other upgrades that made that weapon dope in the way that I was playing that run. But another run, you might have to focus on, all right, I'm gonna rock with the shotgun, and also I'm gonna put all my effort into collecting obolites, which is the currency, because I have a artifact or a parasite that makes it so that the more obolites I have, the more power I do. Or I might focus on carrying a bunch of ether, because I have a different upgrade that makes for this run that makes it so that the more ether I have, the more protection I have. It's weird stuff like that makes the different systems in the game affect each other in specific ways that might be unexpected to you as a player, that you have to really roll with. And so in a way, playing this game is like improv, where you kind of have to just say yes and roll with the game and get powerful that way.
That's a great way to put it. I got two more questions before, Parris, you get to leave, and then Blessing, you are with me for eternity. Brandon H writes in and says, do you think Returnal will be on your top 10 list at the end of the year? Blessing.
1000% yes. It is right now my favorite game of the year.
Wow. Parris?
Yeah. Absolutely, because it's definitely my top 3 right now. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think for me too, which is crazy for me to say in terms of, I think, roguelites rarely super connecting with me. Like the way I think of it is, right from, even though I'm not by any stretch of the imagination done with Returnal, right? I'm gonna have to pause my playthrough here to move to a different review right after this episode of PS I Love You. And my idea is that once I finish that other game, I'm coming back to Returnal, right? And this is gonna be something I continue to work at, chip away at, and get better at. So I think it's gonna have staying power, and I think it's gonna be really interesting to see the conversation when this gets out into the wild with everybody else playing.
I cannot wait to see what the conversation is, because part of me, like, I low-key want to put out a tweet that's like, hey man, Ratchet and Clank, you better come with that fire, because right now there's a PlayStation 5 game that is knocking it out the park. And like, I do think that this, by the end of the year, this is still going to stand as one of the bigger surprises of this year, like how good this game is. Whether or not it actually makes game of the year list, we'll have to wait and see. But I think for sure this is going to be in the conversation for a lot of people for their favorite game. It's just so fun, man.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that, just in this sense that I didn't know what to expect from Returnal coming into it. And now that I've played it and I've been experiencing it, I almost look back at the marketing for it and go, why wasn't this talked about more? I almost feel like now that we have in our hands, and obviously we've been talking about a lot on social media, I feel like people are getting super excited about right now. But look at, like you bring up Ratchet and Clank, look at all the excitement around Ratchet and Clank, and that's still not coming, for over a month, right? but I feel like that's been at the top of our mind since the launch of the PlayStation 5. Whereas Returnal, I truly feel like I've only seen the excitement for it here in the last few weeks. But I completely agree that when Jeff Keighley's standing on that stage at the end of the year, he'll definitely be bringing Returnal up in some category because it deserves it.
You raise an interesting point. I want to drop it in here. So now it's 3 questions. Bo wrote in to patreon.com/kindafunnygames, just like you can. It says, this past week, I've seen so many people online saying things like, Returnal didn't interest me, but after seeing early impression videos, I can't wait to play it. With lots of positive anticipation building this week before Returnal's release, is this a sign that PS5 players crave more mid-sized and mid-budget games? Or are they just thirsty for a new generation experience, any experience, after the slow early months of the year? Or is it that the game is just so damn appealing regardless of its size and budget? It's interesting to see the hype building around Returnal. I'm excited to play it and very happy for Housemarque. They deserve a quality win. For me, I think Bo stumbles onto a bunch of different points there that all work out in the end. But I think this is, video game marketing, and it kind of is a workshop on how it works, where a Ratchet and Clank you can tease for months and months and months to get people stoked for. Returnal, a smaller game, a new IP from trusted developers that are going to win over, people like us that are students in the industry or people who are super obsessed with PlayStation. Awesome. You don't need to show us. That's what I've been saying this whole time, right? Blessing, when we've talked about Returnal, of like, man, I don't know what to make of it. And I don't know, but every time I would say that, I'm like, but it's Housemarque, so I'm sure it's going to play fantastically. And so to be able to have these previews start dropping and do it a week before, like, the week before launch, you let people talk about the first 3 biomes and you let people put up videos, and all the videos are, holy shit, this is great. This is exactly what they want in a time, like Bo brings up, that like there just aren't that many things happening for PlayStation 5 right now.
I mean, my thing is, what if last June during the PlayStation presentation, or at an E3, even though PlayStation never goes to E3 anymore, what if a bunch of press got their hands on it and PlayStation was like, play Returnal for an hour, talk about it as much as you want, like write your articles, and what the sentiment around it would have been if they did that. Because for how Returnal was marketed, it was part of the PlayStation presentation alongside Ratchet and Clank and Spider-Man Miles Morales and the PlayStation 5. Like, there was so much stuff surrounding Returnal that it kind of got buried, and I don't think the marketing ever did justice to it. And I think it's a tough thing because this is a $70 game with a story that is so shrouded in mystery that I think is probably hard to market from that perspective, because they would show off the house stuff and they would show off some of the cutscenes, but you'd be like, for us watching in our reactions, I think all of us were just like, all right, this is weird. Like, what do we make of this? And you would see gameplay and you'd go, this looks like it could be fun, but I don't think there was ever anything tangible there. And so without that, without people having to being able to get hands on with it, evangelizing it, and making people go, no, you guys don't understand, Returnal is going to be a really fun game that comes out next year. I think so many people kind of missed out on that cycle of telling their friends about this game,
but they're having it now, right? My counter would be like, does that matter? Because like, if I feel like it could have blown up in their face the opposite way, where it could have been that we all played it, we all loved it, and we all talked about it for 9 months or whatever, and either you've made up your mind that, okay, cool, it's another Housemarque game, or you've made up your mind, roguelites are not really my thing. And if we were saying the same stories we had, I don't even think, for me, it wouldn't even have been that, right? If I played an hour of Returnal at E3 or whatever, I would have been like, yeah, it handles really well and there's cool stuff going on. I don't know if it's going to be for me. We're 7 hours in now, finally being able to talk about it. And I could have done this, with the preview embargo last week if I wasn't moving, being like, no, there's something here. I think you're seeing people get stoked for it. And like Bo's pointing out, I think it's been crazy to see on Twitter us continuing to talk about it in vague terms. And Parris, I've already referenced your tweets on this show, let alone the fact you brought them up too. But like, I've had that same thing of like, I want to go and tweet about it. And I'm like, well, number one, I don't want to spoil it. But also number two, you won't get it. You won't get it till you're in the thick of it and you can see it and you can play it and you're experiencing it.
No, completely agree with what you're saying. And you bring up the great point. If we would have played this for an hour at E3, we wouldn't have the same response, because that is not enough time to actually understand how this game works. I think it did need a preview period, and maybe, again, a victim of COVID and the fact that we all have to distance ourselves. They couldn't have like a proper preview event where
fly people out.
Yeah, fly us out for a day, and we really get to sink a good 6 to 8 hours into the game, where I think you would really get an understanding for it and get the appeal. And then obviously we'd be evangelists talking about it on our shows and preview articles and all that stuff. But I don't know. It's weird. I just, like you said, it's happening now, which obviously is a good thing. We're all talking about it, but I almost wish that, yeah, we would have had more, but COVID probably is the outlier here that's screwing all that up, that they couldn't have a real preview presence for this game because you have to have your hands on it to understand it. There's no way me talking about it, you understanding what you're about to get yourself into when you pick up the controller.
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna send this. Well, Barrett, do you have the ability to, if I send you a link to bring up actually, hold on, Barrett, just go to Google Trends and put in Returnal, because I think if you want to see it, I think it's exactly what you'd want from a smaller game in terms of interest over time, right? Where it's like there's the peak, obviously, in June 7th to 13th when it's revealed. Then it's quiet as shit. Then there's a little bit of a build in December, a little bit of a build in January, a little bit of a build in February, and then it's off like a spaceship. Like, you know what I mean? Like right now, where on of the week of the 11th or the 17th or whatever, just and they have the projected thing to continuing it to go up. Like, I think, again, video games and marketing and how do you get behind them and how do you sell them and where do you put them? That's a ball of wax and obviously I think a fascinating conversation. But right now, in terms of, yeah, like what people are going to be excited for next week and how you keep people at a fever pitch and how the other thing is, I don't think you want people to have time to feel like for this game, to have time like they've seen it all, or they're sick of it before they even get it for a $70 game that they don't know, right? I think right now, having that moment, it's the hot thing. Everybody wants to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Final question before we let Parris go. Connor wrote into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames and says, for someone that doesn't have any experience with roguelites, is Returnal a good place to start? I love the cosmic horror vibes to it, and the gunplay looks fun, but constantly starting back from scratch sounds more terrifying. Thanks for the insight. Parris, we'll start with you. Is Returnal a good place to start?
I do. Yeah, I think for exactly what Blessing was saying earlier, it's a friendly entry into this genre where they're not going to overwhelm you from jump. They're going to at least give you a little bit of chance to kind of breathe, to kind of explore, to understand the world and the mechanics. Not to mention, this is a very high production value game. So, you know, you're getting everything at the AAA level with the genre. And like I said, for me, wasn't necessarily my thing coming into it.
Yeah.
But when I played this, I'm like, maybe I need to go play Hades. Like, I've never played Dead Cells as an example. Maybe I need to go start playing these type of games.
Play Dead Cells, man.
Yeah, because I'm loving this. So yeah, I think this would be a great starting point.
Blessing.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is, you know, when it comes to the trepidation to wanting to start a game that seems like it's going to be punishing or seems terrifying to get into because it's a roguelite and you've heard about how roguelites can be punishing, I think there are two things to take note of. The gameplay of Returnal is a third-person shooter. It is a third-person arcade shooter. You've probably played that before. And from that standpoint, like, I think it is an easy game to understand. Like, it develops like almost like a Metroidvania or any other type of game like that. But then also, number two, the way that I on Twitter, I get like a lot of people whenever I talk about roguelites, or when I was talking about Returnal, right? There's like a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm not into roguelites. I don't like roguelites. And that always kind of surprises me a little bit. Like, I get it from one standpoint of losing your progress and all that stuff. But then on the other side, for me, when I think of roguelites and when I get into roguelites, for me, I look at them the same way as I look at arcade games. And arcade games that we played in the past, or we play over time, right? Like, you start from the get-go every single time. You know, whenever I played Donkey Kong, the original Donkey Kong arcade game, you know, you're starting from scratch when you lose, but that didn't stop them from being an addicting experience. That didn't stop them from being super fun. And if anything, I see roguelites being the exact same way, but you get progression that you're taking forward with you at the same time. And so if anything, I would say just look at Returnal as an arcade game where you are carrying some progression with you. And I think that's a way to make it feel like a more friendly experience.
Exactly. I mean, you nail it. And I think that's the thing that this game does really well. I think it's a great place to start. And if you haven't done it, I think it's something really, really special. And I'm excited for more people to play it. Parris, thank you so much for stopping by the review.
No, thank you. Xbox. There I said
no.
Wait, Parris, before you go, how would you rank the PlayStation buttons? Like the X, triangle, square,
great question.
and circle?
Yeah. From best to worst PlayStation buttons ranked.
How would I rank them?
Yeah. What's your favorite PlayStation button? For just the sacred symbols.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just the
I'm
four
sorry,
symbols.
Parris. We keep it professional and not silly on XCast. This is the type of silliness you get on the PlayStation.
I would
show.
say the triangle would be my favorite.
Wow.
Dark
wow.
horse. You don't see that often.
I like it.
Like, I believe this X-bot. Get out of here, Parris.
What's your
Go
least
get
favorite?
ready for the
Least
X-cast.
favorite.
Whichever one Greg selects.
I hate you.
The
All right.
circle, then,
Okay.
the circle.
All right.
It's probably the circle.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, dude. Thanks for coming by.
you,
Ladies and
Parris.
gentlemen, while Parris gets out of here, why don't we tell you about patreon.com/kindafunnygames? Of course, you can go there to be part of the show like so many of you were for this Returnal review. Thank you very, very much. You can get the show ad-free. You can get the show with the post show we do each and every week. We do the show. But guess what? You're not there. You're somewhere else. You're on YouTube. You're in your car. So let me tell you about our sponsors. This episode of PS I Love You XOXO is brought to you by Upstart. When it comes to paying off debt, it can often feel like an uphill battle. High interest rates resulting in minimum monthly payments keeps you in an endless cycle of debt, but Upstart can help you get ahead. Are you carrying a credit card balance month after month? You're not the only one. High interest rates make it hard to pay off your debt, but Upstart can help. Join the thousands of happy borrowers who made that final payment. Do you dread looking at your credit card statement every month? We don't blame you. Upstart can lift that weight off your shoulders so you can finally feel the relief of being free of credit card debt. Upstart is the fast and easy way to pay off debt with a personal loan all online. Whether it's paying off credit cards, consolidating high interest debt, or funding personal expenses, over 500,000 people have used Upstart to get a simple fixed monthly payment. Unlike other lenders, Upstart looks at more than just your credit score, like your income and employment history. This means they can offer smarter rates with trusted partners. It's a tired, kind of funny story, you know, but Upstart supported us for so long, you might have heard me say it before, years and years and years and years and years, because I'm so old. When I moved to San Francisco, I took out a loan that was not with Upstart because they didn't exist yet. And guess what? That place did not look at my employment history or my income. And instead, they just said, you know what? You have no real credit history, so we're going to get you on this. And they got me on it. Upstart doesn't do that. With a 5-minute online rate check, you can see your rate upfront for loans between $1,000 to $50,000. You can receive funds as fast as 1 business day after accepting your loan. Find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/kindafunny. That's upstart.com/kindafunny. Don't forget to use our URL to let them know we sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Go to upstart.com/kindafunny. Our next sponsor is FitBod. Don't get stuck doing the same workouts. Making progress towards your future means overcoming new challenges. FitBod creates fitness programs that continually adapt to new exercises and dynamic intensity that adjust how you are progressing. So you'll be challenged to meet your goals at your own pace. The one and only Gia Tap Harris has been doing this during quarantine, and it's helped her stay motivated, stay fit, and stay active. There's no perfect body for everyone to achieve, but what we can do is continually become a better version of ourselves. No workout is one size fits all. FitBod creates a fitness program that continually adapts to you, so you stay challenged with new exercises, pacing, and intensity based on where you are and where you want to be. FitBod understands that the path to achieving your best look differs for everybody. FitBod creates a program based on your unique body, experience, and environment. Their algorithm uses data and analytics to help you build on your last workout to maximize your results. Whether you're exercising 3 days a week or twice a day, every workout is scientifically proven to be better than the last. FitBod workouts are balanced to avoid overworking muscles with varied exercises to keep you sharp. No equipment, no worries. FitBod has body weight routines for those looking to get fit at home or on the go. FitBod is super easy to use and even has HD video tutorials to make learning new exercises a breeze. It integrates with other fitness health apps like Apple Health, Fitbit, and Strava. Personalized training can be tough on the budget, but FitBod is only $9.99 a month or $59.99 a year. Sign up now and you'll get 25% off your membership. Pick up the pace on your fitness journey with FitBod today, and your future self will thank you. Get 25% off your membership at fitbod.me/kfgames. That's 25% off at fitbod.me/kfgames. And our final sponsor of the day is Dr. Squatch. Okay, real talk here. The soap or body wash you're using, it's shit. It's packed with harsh chemicals, synthetic detergents, and it's brutal on your skin. If you're ready to step up your game to a soap that's natural, great for your skin, and doesn't smell like a middle school locker room, Dr. Squatch is where it's at. Dr. Squatch is changing the way men approach hygiene with their natural personal care products that make you feel like a man and smell like a champion. All of Dr. Squatch's soaps are made in the USA using the finest ingredients nature has to offer. That means natural cleansers and nourishing ingredients that are actually great for your skin. Dr. Squatch's soaps come in a huge range of natural manly scents that are going to transform your shower, whether it's their best-selling pine tar or scents like bay rum and cedar citrus. You're never going to have a boring shower again. The one and only Blessing, Adeoye Jr. has been using this. He's using the grapefruit IPA, and he says it's great. He loves the smell of it in the shower and having a great time being nourished. If you really want to make it easy on yourself, you can also subscribe to Dr. Squatch, just like hundreds of thousands of other guys have. Every month, fresh soap bars of Squatch show up at your door. It's super easy. They've got a full lineup of personal care goods like deodorant, hair care, and toothpaste. Right now, new customers can get 20% off on orders of $20 or more when they go to drsquatch.com and enter the code DSCKFGames. That's drsquatch.com, code DSCKFGames. DSCKF Games for 20% off on orders of $20 or more. Blessing, believe it or not, this show's far from over because on top of Returnal and having a review, there are so many PlayStation updates this week. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, there are so many PlayStation updates that even like there's certain bits of major PlayStation news that we can't even talk about because
there was
what
the Firewatch like
Firewalk Studios. They're doing a multiplayer game
for
new
PlayStation
IP for PlayStation. You go to KFGD for that. There's also PlayStation Plus games that are announced. Wreckfest, Drive Hard, which is for PS5 apparently. Battlefield 5 in the Stranded Deep, and then also we got the name of Rivet, who is the girl Lombax from Ratchet and Clank. And there's also State of Play happening today as the time.
Yeah, if you're watching this on Thursday, we're doing a reacts, obviously, to the State of Play. You can come to twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames to watch live, later on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. If that wasn't enough, there's the PlayStation Plus video thing in Poland that's happening. But yeah,
that too.
That's all stuff that's happening, and you should have seen it on Games Daily. I know how many people watch everything. You see it.
Yeah.
We've taken the updates down to the biggest things we could do.
Yeah, starting with The Last of Us Part 3. Greg, it has a plot, but it's not being made yet. I'm pulling from Joe Screbbles and IGN to catch us up. Speaking on an episode of the Script Apart podcast about the writing of The Last of Us Part 2, Druckmann touched briefly on the possibility of a sequel. Quote, I don't know how much I want to reveal. Co-writer Holly Gross. Greg, is it Holly or Haley? Do you know?
It's Hallie.
Holly. Okay. Holly Gross and I did write an outline for a story that we're not making, but I hope one day can see the light of day that explores a little bit of what happens after this game. We'll see, end quote. Druckmann says there's been quite a bit of discussion internally about a Part 3, but pointed out how much work is involved in making a game like this a reality. Quote, these games take so much to make. Part 2, I've been thinking about it for 7 years, between when the last game came out and when this came out. You want to make sure you're jazzed by the idea that you have, that it feels like it's challenging. We've now had 2 games that I feel speak to something universal as well as telling us a very personal story for these characters. With one game, there's no pattern of what a franchise is. With 2 games, now there's starting to be a pattern. Now I feel like there are some structural and thematic themes you'd have to stick to if you're making a 3rd game, end quote. Greg, can you believe it? Last of Us Part 3 is a possibility.
Of course I can. The success of Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2. But it's also that thing where I feel like it's deja vu for when we finished Last of Us, right? And it was like, do you want a Part 2? And I was like, well, yeah, obviously I'll take anything from Naughty Dog. Like I want their, masters of the craft, but I don't feel like I need it. And I feel like that's where I feel now. I like, I guess, spoilers for Last of Us Part 2. Not like hardcore spoilers, but I'm going to mention somebody at the end of the game that if you're like, I wonder if they made it or not, yada, yada, yada. This was your chance. Your chance is ending. Goodbye. Like, I like not knowing where Ellie went. I like that she walked off and there's that open interpretation of like, did she do this? Did she do that? Like what? And so like, I'm not sitting here with bated breath needing answers on that. And of course you could pick up in Last of Us Part 3, of course, could not be about that at all. It could be Lev, it could be Abby, it could be other characters in the world, right? But I still feel like there'd be at some point a crossover in like a Bill situation where we run into an Ellie or something. And again, that could be cool and that'd be awesome and I'm sure it'd be fantastic, but I don't know if I need it. The one thing that got me excited about it, and I apologize, I don't know who this was, on Twitter today talking about this, one of our peers, quote tweeted and was like, what gets me excited about this is that, in a trilogy, usually the second one is the darkest. So it'd be interesting to see if the third one would end more happily and would end with and I was like, oh, that does actually get me interested because that obviously is such a knock of Last of Us Part 2 for people that it is so dour, and it is so heavy, and I love that about it, and the discussions that stem from it, and about hate, revenge, and so on. But it would be interesting if we got another one at it, and it wasn't so much, Neil's talked about it before, that the first game is about love, this one's about hate. What would the third one be? You would imagine reconciliation, what I mean, some kind of
mercy,
healing,
grace.
something like that. Yeah, exactly. So that would get me interested. And like I'm saying, of course, I'm a clown, I'll play it no matter what, but I don't sit here and go, oh man, I would be more excited at face value to see Naughty Dog be like, we're doing something brand new and here's what it is.
See, that's my thing. I think if Last of Us Part 3 came by 7 years from now, I think by that time I'd be ready for it. But right now I would like if Naughty Dog did something new, right? A new IP, a new idea. That's the thing I want more from them. But they are one of those studios where I'm like, do whatever you want and give it to me and I'm gonna play it. Like, I'm gonna enjoy it. And I think if Naughty Dog, if Neil Druckmann and Holly were like, nah, we don't want to do Last of Us Part 3, we feel like we've wrapped up here, I think Sony would still find a way to make a new Last of Us that isn't by them. Maybe it is a new Naughty Dog spin-off studio that they create to make it, or something like that. And a Last of Us Part 3, I think, would happen regardless, or a Last of Us spin-off game, or something that is The Last of Us.
Last of Us spin-off, and I don't know how you feel about it, but like Last of Us spin-off, what I would really be interested to see would be like Last of Us, whatever you're gonna call it, spin-off, but like the first 100 days or something like that, which would be set more of, we are in Chicago, you know what I mean? It's not about Joel, it's not about Ellie, it's whatever. We're in a city as Outbreak Day happens, and then as all hell breaks loose, and as everybody tries to figure out what the fuck's going on. I feel like, a spin-off, and I want to do another it's like, cool, Man's Inhumanity to Man and clickers. Like, I feel like we already know where we're going with that if we were just giving a side story happening inside of the universe as it already is in the timeline. Whereas if you went way before it was, scavengers, and before, the whole thing of, like, I always think back to that great scene in Last of Us Part 1, one of the first we ever saw, right? Of like when the guy comes out for help and Joel's like, he's not even hurt. And then she's like, how did you know that? And he's like, I've been on both sides of that ambush before. It's like, that I think sets up so well what the world of The Last of Us is by the time we meet Joel and Ellie, that I'd love to see what it was like before.
How did we get here? Yeah, I think that'd be cool. And I'd honestly be down for either, but I do like that they're thinking about the idea, which means that like it's not going to be out of their hands, right? Like Naughty Dog still has that power and that decision to make if they want to make that decision. And I would like to see a Last of Us Part 3 that is maybe about Lev years down the road, right? Like where is their story gone and all that stuff. I think that would be really cool. But we'll have to wait and see. And again, like for how Sony's been operating lately as a studio too, I think, or as a publisher, as I say, I think it's worth pointing out that inevitably there's going to be a new big Last of Us game, whether a spinoff or a sequel or whatever it is. And
Factions, it'll be huge.
Factions is going to be awesome. But Factions plays into the point I'm about to make, which is we will, if that happens 7 years from now, we will still get a bunch of Last of Us in between that, whether that be Factions or the show or the remake or a mobile game or whatever. Totally. Like there's they PlayStation Studios has set themselves up in a way where they can, if they want to support these franchises through different iterations, that'll carry us forward. That'll I'll say satisfy our appetite for a Last of Us by the time we get to that new Last of Us, and I'm looking forward to whatever that is.
Yeah, especially of course. Factions. Again, it's like we're talking about with like when we were talking about the Last of Us remake. Yeah, right. Yeah, not remastered, but the remake. And it was that thing of like, this doesn't need to exist, but of course I'm gonna play it, and of course I'm gonna love it, and I'm sure it's gonna be. It's that thing of, I'm excited to see them create whatever they want to create. So if Neil and Hallie want to get out there and go and tell this third thing, I'm excited to see what it'll be. But it'll be interesting to see how long it is, because as he points out in the thing, right, like Part 2, I've been thinking about it for 7 years. So we got a while before we get anything Last of Us Part 3 related.
For sure. And I'm down to wait.
You would.
Next update for you. The PS5 has shipped 7.8 million units in 5 months. This is James Batchelor at gamesindustry.biz. And the article I'm about to read is very much pared down. James Batchelor did his thing when he was writing this thing. So go give him a click. Sony revealed PS5 has shipped 7.8 million units into retail since launching in November. This includes 4.5 million during its launch quarter and 3.3 million in the 3 months ended March 31st. While Sony only reports the shipments into retail, the ongoing sellout of PS5 stock wherever it appears likely makes it safe to say the full 7.8 million has been sold to consumers. Earlier this month, NPD confirmed it's the best-selling console in US history when looking at lifetime dollar and unit sales for the first 5 months of release. Sony sold 338.9 million games in the past year across the two consoles, up from 276.1 million the previous year. Of these, 58.4 million were first party, up from 49.2 million in fiscal year 2019. For the next fiscal year, or for the next financial year, Sony is forecasting revenues of $26.6 billion for its games division, which would be about 9% more than what it achieved this year. And Jeff Keighley put a tweet up on Twitter yesterday morning is the time you're listening to this, where we wrapped it all up saying, it's incredible. There's incredible at PlayStation's facts and company earnings. We got 7.8 million PS5 sold, 47.6 million PlayStation Plus subscribers, 338 million games sold for PS4 and PS5 in the past year, and then $24.4 billion in gaming revenue in the past year. Greg, what do these numbers say to you?
I mean, it's the ongoing conversation of how weird it was that, the pandemic was such a horrible thing for the world, but so good for video games in terms of sales and getting people in through the door and doing this. And then, of course, the continued success of the PlayStation 5 and the fact that I like, James's article here talking about the fact that, this is shipped, but the fact that you can't get one in the store means they're sold as well.
They're sold,
right?
yeah.
The 7.8. And I mean, I think it's this entire PlayStation update we're doing today, right? Pretty much starting here, and then the next section, I think, is the most recent example of everything we've talked about in the past weeks of here's Xbox making all these crazy announcements and acquisitions and moves with Game Pass and the show, and here is PlayStation doubling down on what works, right? And you look at the numbers as, Jeff's tweet does such a great job of just giving it the cold hard facts in your face there, right? Of like the runaway success the PlayStation brand is right now, regardless of what's going on with Xbox and where they're doing and what they're shaking all these things out for and what that means. Because again, we're never talking about the fight right now. We're talking about how Xbox's acquisition of studios and first-party lineup and service lineup and Game Pass and xCloud, how does that compare in 5 years to PlayStation's first-party and everything they've established and run out there and PlayStation Plus subscribers and PlayStation Now? Like, this is, again, let's roll right into it, right? I think PlayStation's taken it on the chin so much in the past few weeks of, the article about Days Gone 2 not happening when it got pitched, the guy leaving, who was working on Last of Us Remaster, but left because they're only wanting this and not letting people go and yada, yada, yada. I put this one in here with Bless and I said, now a tale of game in 3 acts. We'll start at VGC where Tom Ivan wrote, Jim Ryan says PlayStation has been quietly investing in PlayStation 5 exclusives. Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan has claimed PS5 will be home to more exclusive games than any previous console. Speaking to Nikkei, paywall translated by VGC, Nikkei actually, by the way, the PlayStation boss said the company has been quietly investing in the creation of first-party software and that it could pursue further mergers and acquisition opportunities to bolster its in-house development capabilities. Quote, we have been quietly but steadily investing in high-quality games for PlayStation, and we will make sure that the PS5 generation will have more dedicated software than ever before, Ryan said. We have repeatedly engaged in mergers and acquisitions, including Insomniac Games in the US. We will not rule out that option in the future. He said, quote, it is important to us to provide software that fits the Japanese gaming community, and the PS5 has included a lot of software from Japanese developers since its early stages. We will continue to strengthen our ties with Japanese developers and release content on PS5 that fits the Japanese market. So again, this tale, the tale of a game in 3 acts, and to an extent, piggybacking off these numbers, these are really the ripples of what we've seen in the past few months here with PlayStation News on PS I Love You XOXO, right? Of talking about when Sony was like, you know what, Japan studio, no, you're just going to be reformed around Team Asobi and support them. We're getting rid of the localization. We're getting rid of all the third-party stuff we did before. Those developers, if they want to go make those things, have to go make them somewhere else. And if you remember, the thing was that why Japan Studio was struggling, reportedly, was the fact that PlayStation's decree has been, we want things that apply to the worldwide market, and Japan Studio was, we want to make things that apply to the Japanese market, but could also be successful worldwide. So you see this reaction in Nikkei, right? The Japanese video game publication, talking directly to that. of Jim Ryan saying, no, like we're still in this, we're still making things with Japanese developers, and we're investing in exclusives, right? Which has been this ongoing conversation as Microsoft buys Bethesda, Microsoft, buys up the rights to something else. It has Outriders over there. It's PlayStation having to get off the bench a bit and talk a bit about what their plans are. Now, you go from there, let's go to the Gamer, where Josh Colson writes, Sony to invest an additional $183 million into PlayStation exclusives over the next year. Of course, paring down this article as well. Sony will continue to heavily invest in PlayStation's in-house projects over the coming year and plans to increase its investment in that area by almost $200 million. PlayStation has been big on exclusives for a while now, and their continued success alone is proof that is set to continue. In fact, as discussed by Sony CFO Hiroki Tokoki.
Yes.
Yeah, Totoki. This week, the plan going forward is to invest even more money in PlayStation's in-house projects. During a call with investors, Totoki revealed Sony's plans to up its investments in that area by $183 million over the coming year. Quote, we intend to increase development personnel and other in-house costs by approximately $183 million year on year as we further strengthen our in-house software, he told VGC, or was revealed via VGC. So again, right, this... They're not announcing the games. They're not announcing the acquisitions. They're announcing the fact that, hey, this is what the plan is. Jim Ryan talking to the fact that, no, we are still working with Japanese developers. We are still focused on the Japanese market. We're not above mergers and acquisitions. And PlayStation 5 will have more exclusives than any other PlayStation console. Followed up quickly by this CFO talking about the fact that, hey, this is the actual financial investment we're putting into the first-party personnel to expand what's going on. And, we talked, Blessing, recently about the San Diego studio, not Sony San Diego, but the San Diego studio, right? That was being formed down there to work on the remaster and all these different things.
Yeah, Last of Us remake and
exactly. Yeah. So you're seeing them talk to an extent, not about that specifically, but about the fact that they are continuing to work inside and in-house, right? As if that wasn't enough. Your third act comes from Andy at VGC, who writes, PlayStation insists it's committed to releasing experimental games alongside blockbusters. PlayStation has spent most of the past console generation focusing on story-driven, single-player games like God of War, Horizon, and Ghost of Tsushima. But PlayStation Studios boss Herman Hulst told GI.biz, its latest signing showed it was committed to coming up with new ideas too. Quote, I think that the games we make are as distinct and diverse as they can be, Hulse said. From Sackboy to Astrobot to Dreams to these kind of games that you're referring to, like The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima. And you can bet that we will carry on making these games because they are the heart and soul of what we do here at PlayStation Studios. But at the same time, we are just as committed to making these quality experiences as we are to... Let me try all this again. But at the same time, we are just as committed to making these quality experiences as we are to experimentation and to coming up with fresh ideas. Again, Blessing. Yeah. Reading through the lines, responding to all the stuff that came out of that Jason Schreier Bloomberg report about the fact that they didn't want people branching out. They wanted, Ben to help out with this Naughty Dog project, this multiplayer thing. They wanted, the fact that they were this argument that we've had. Is PlayStation too conservative? Did they play it too safe with their first parties? You're seeing not the announcements, but PlayStation finally saying something, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I think that story plays into what we're seeing and what we've been seeing over the past few weeks with not only the release of Returnal, which I think kind of feeds into that strategy of Returnal.
100%. Sorry, go on. I was going to say that's a weird game.
Yeah, it's a weird game, right? And I think they consider it first party, even though Housemarque isn't a first party studio. PlayStation still owns it as a first party game. But Returnal, right, being an example, along with Firewalk Studios, which is the new studio that they announced recently this last week, that is working on a new multiplayer IP. Haven Studios being Jade Raymond's studio that is working on their own original IP. What we've seen before with things like Kojima Productions and other partnerships that they've made. And what we've seen with things like even Maquette and Solar Ash and games that were revealed at the PlayStation presentation, which either had marketing deals or exclusive deals on PlayStation. Bugsnax being another example. They're I think balancing all these things in ways that makes sense and is going to produce the best potential possible for what they're working with. PlayStation first party studios, PlayStation Studios, I guess I should say, is like 19 studios, probably less than that. And with that, they kind of have to work smart. And I mentioned before in previous episodes that based off of the report from Jason Schreier about the San Diego studio and them working on a remake and all this stuff, speaks to how I think I could easily see this next generation PlayStation first party studios working on fewer IP, but building out those IP in the way that I talked about Last of Us earlier, right? Like having the remake, having a multiplayer game, having other iterations of Last of Us to support an eventual Last of Us Part 3 or a new Last of Us game, let's say 7 years from now, keeping a fewer franchises in first party they're able to support in that type of way. But then also having partnerships and having studios that you link up with, whether it's the studio that did the Iron Man VR game, right? Like there's a lot of examples of PlayStation reaching out and partnering with studios in order to make the weird shit that we want from PlayStation, that we want as exclusives on the platform, along with the big budget games that are going to be on the platform to sell PlayStations and that we fall in love with on that side, being Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us, etc.
Yeah,
I think it all works together in a really smart way.
Again, I think you're 100% right. And I think it's that Xbox is getting so much juice by talking and be able to point to the games and the studios and the things they're doing right now. To your point, the way, and remember, this is the infamous thing where Insomniac, before they were bought, corrected me about like what a second party deal is anymore and how that doesn't really exist in PlayStation's mindset anymore. That if you are an exclusive game that they're helping publish, you're first party. And to your point, Housemarque and Returnal opens with the PlayStation Studios logo. And that is one of those things that you can't lose sight of, that these partnerships play into the umbrella of what PlayStation Studios is. You went to 19, right? But when you go to the Wikipedia thing for the worldwide studios, it still lists 14 there. And so it's like, that's 14 that are owned and operated, right? But how many games, how many partnerships are putting games underneath the PlayStation Studios banner that start up and are building a repertoire and arsenal that obviously is nothing to scoff at. It isn't maybe as sexy and crazy as Xbox coming in and buying Bethesda, but if you are able to make these partnerships and get things like Returnal, like the original Spider-Man from Insomniac before they bought Spider-Man or Insomniac, right? Like there are these conversations to be had of what that strategy is and how it nets out. And I will be interested to see as this year goes on, especially now that Xbox has had so much time to talk about how great they are and how much cool shit they're doing, because they are great and they are doing a ton of cool shit. How does PlayStation respond to that? And do we get to at what point do we go through the state of plays? Because obviously they've said they're not doing E3. I heard it's because they hate the host. When they start doing more and more state of plays, are we getting stoked when we see that PlayStation Studios logo start? Is that really going to be the driving force of, like, rather than, the old console exclusive, console launch exclusive, that kind of shit? Is it going to be the fact that it's another trailer that starts with the PlayStation Studios logo that really starts driving home the fact of, like, wait a second, like, they have all sorts of partnerships, whether it be something like Returnal, whether it be something like, you brought up Iron Man, right, from Camouflage. Like, there's so many different things to it. And again, I can't wait to see what all of this means 5 years from now. We're going to continue to be in the shit here down in the trenches, talking about it every week and every day on Kind of Funny Games Daily. But what does this actually net out to in terms of success for this generation?
Yeah, and I think the second party thing is a good thing to bring up, because I think what they're doing with that is taking that and turning it into what could be a marketing beat / way to brand everything, right? Like to the point of the PlayStation Studios logo starting off games, right? Like that PlayStation Studio opens up Returnal and it is Horizon and God of War and Last of Us and like the stuff that from PlayStation. And the more and more I think you start to own that branding and put PlayStation Studios behind all these games, and you do have that press conference, which is PlayStation Studios, and it's all these games that you don't just identify as PlayStation Studios being the Last of Us and all the other stuff, but you are getting games that are Bugsnax or Returnal or games that feel quirky or feel weird, or you don't associate with PlayStation. You start associating them with PlayStation. I think that becomes a bigger thing and a thing that really nails down that brand. I mentioned Bugsnax, even though I don't think forget if Bugsnax is published by PlayStation or not. They might not be. They might just be timed exclusive or something. But it still feeds into that narrative, I think, of, hey, PlayStation Studios is bigger than PlayStation first party. It is PlayStation partnerships and all these other deals that we're making to make PlayStation games feel bigger and feel more plentiful, and really selling you on this console having a bunch of games that you can only play here.
I know the PR person on Bugsnax, so I'm asking.
Oh, okay, cool. I can also look up Bugsnax on Wikipedia.
Yeah, we could too. I can, but yeah, it was before they did the PlayStation Studios thing, right? So it's like
published by Young Horses and Fangamer.
Okay,
It
so
says on Wikipedia.
Yep, Bugsnax PR has confirmed now that they are not the publisher.
Cool. Yeah, so Bugsnax not a good example, but Returnal I think is probably the main example that we can make with this, and the Haven Studio game that'll come out, and the Firewalk Studio game. Like all these big announcements they're making are going to go a long way into making PlayStation Studios feel like something bigger and greater. And with this much money being invested into the future of PlayStation Studios and getting exclusive titles, I think that is going to be a force to reckon with down the line. Another thing I do want to shout out to from the story from GamesIndustry.biz, James Batchelor, about the 7.8 million units. Toward the end of that article, they mentioned that they expect 9% more achieved over this next year than this last fiscal year, and I really am curious to know what that means, because this last fiscal year we got Final Fantasy VII Remake, we got Ghost of Tsushima, we got The Last of Us Part 2, we got Spider-Man Miles Morales, we got the release of PlayStation 5, we got a whole bunch of shit, good shit, I mean, not bad shit, but like this next fiscal year, it's like, cool, we got Ratchet and Clank announced. We know that you've announced God of War for this year. None of us believe it, and I don't even believe that it's going to be this fiscal year. I think it'll be post-March. Horizon Zero Dawn, I could see maybe hitting. I think that could be included. But even with that, that's still a lot, right? Final Fantasy Integrate, I'm sure, is probably being counted into that to some extent. But I do want to know what that means. And there's this morning when we were preparing for KFGD, Tim sent me a really good Reset Era post where somebody tried to break down. I'm trying to find it now. I had to close my entire Chrome window because Twitch started going off. And so give me a second to actually re-find it and open back up. But it was somebody essentially talking about how I've pulled it up. This is Motiz from Reset Era. They put out a post talking about the numbers and the expectations and all this stuff, right? And they write here that in the article, in an article they mentioned, this from Twinfinite, Sony expects software sales to drop year on year during the first quarter that will end on June 30th. But the company predicts that they will go back to matching last year's performance from the second quarter onward. And Motiz makes the comment here that this means that by quarter two, which starts in July and ends in September, Sony expects software sales to match last year's software sales, while at the end of Q1, being April to June, they were below on software sales. And then from here on, the discussion is speculative. Last year, Sony had The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima by that point, as well as third-party releases like Final Fantasy VII Remake. By the end of Q2 this year, as far as we know, there will be Returnal and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, as well as Resident Evil Village and Deathloop from the third-party side. Ratchet, as well as RE Village, will likely perform very well, but both are Q1 releases. Returnal is as well. The only major Q2 release that we know of so far is Deathloop, but it is very unlikely to outsell last year's Q2 release, Ghost of Tsushima, especially with it having 2 months less on the market, because Deathloop is coming out in like September. So to reach my point, I believe there is a major game coming from PlayStation during fiscal Q2, or in other words, between July and September, that is yet to be confirmed, but is currently believed by Sony to hit said target. Personally, I think Horizon Zero Dawn, or Horizon Forbidden West, fits these criteria most. And again, this is all speculative, but does make sense when you think about, like, okay, if they're expecting Q2 to be big and be comparable to a Q2 from last year, it can't just be Deathloop, right? It can't just be Ratchet. It's got to be something even bigger than that.
Do we think Horizon hits that?
Nope.
Yeah.
No, but like, I mean,
so
maybe
that's what they're shooting for, what they want
so,
for, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah. So my follow-up question is, because like you have to imagine, like, they know realistically what Horizon is going to do as a sequel, right? My question is, does this tell us that they're really confident that God of War is actually going to hit this year?
No.
No, I mean, they could be forecasting with that in mind, but I don't know. Like, I don't think anybody here believes that it's going to.
So what is it?
But maybe they're forecasting with it.
That makes them so confident. What is it?
Final Fantasy 16. Who knows? Like, I think in terms of this specific quarter, I can see them forecasting that with Horizon Zero Dawn in mind, because or Horizon Forbidden West, I should say, because I can see Horizon Forbidden West meeting or outselling Ghost of Tsushima. Especially if Horizon Forbidden West is on previous gen consoles as well. That I think that might even be a given for them. But yeah, I don't know in terms of what the rest of this year is, like this whole fiscal year. Maybe there are surprises that we don't know. I mean, E3 is coming, or E3 seasons, so not part of E3, but the bigger PlayStation presentations are coming to lay all that out. You imagine.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what actually hits this year and what doesn't. And I think even when you're talking about for fiscal projections, right, you're going off. It's the same reason anything gets release dates, even when they know it won't happen, right? It's for stocks, it's for investors, it's for all that stuff. So even if you're saying, right, like, okay, guess what? We're gonna get Horizon in that time frame. That's the shot. Even if you know behind closed doors you're not gonna do it, right? You still say that because that's still the public line, and you're a publicly traded company, and you need to do all that stuff. So yeah. That's what I think. Sorry, I had to drop out in the middle of that. Somebody had a question. Blessing.
Wait, what's up?
Tell me
had
about
a question.
Yeah, well, I muted myself and I'm leaning over here talking to somebody. It's the whole thing.
Oh, I see.
A PlayStation picks, Blessing. What do we got this week?
Yeah, PlayStation Picks, of course, is where we highlight a few of the cool-looking games coming to PSN this week. To start off with our big hitters, Genshin Impact is getting a PS5 version on Wednesday, April 28th, and then Returnal is coming out Friday, April 30th.
Now, hold on, Bless. Now, I understand why you wouldn't put it in there. I understand it's burned us before. But I want you to know, as someone who has an eagle eye on Retro Mania Wrestling, it is possible, fingers crossed, that it will come out Friday on the PlayStation.
Oh, you think it's actually going to come out this time?
I'm keeping my eye on all the updates for this game. I'm on the Twitter. I'm there. I feel for these guys. You know what I mean? They're like, we talked about it
for you.
We were so excited about it, and then PC came out a month ago or whatever, and then every other one's been like, all right, you know what? Turns out it's harder to get it on consoles than we thought it was, and it's already on fucking Switch and Xbox, but I'm waiting for my trophies. I'm still waiting.
Keep an eye out. Retromania Wrestling.
Blue Meanies in it. Tommy Dreamer, ECW. Come on.
Actual picks this week. Let's start off with Secret Neighbor. That's coming to PS4 on Thursday, April 29th. Hello Neighbor multiplayer. Secret Neighbor is a multiplayer social horror game where a group of intruders try to rescue their friend from the neighbor's creepy basement. Only problem is one of the intruders is the neighbor in disguise. It sounds like Among Us. It sounds like an Among Us type game. And so if you're into Hello Neighbor and want the multiplayer, I believe it's been out on PC already. And so if you want to play it on console, boom, there you go. It's coming out on PS4.
Yay.
We also got R-Type Final 2. That's coming to PS4 on Friday, April 30th. R-Type has returned. The legendary side-scroller is back and better than ever with beautifully rendered 3D graphics, exhilarating shoot-'em-up gameplay, and a multitude of stages, ships, and weapons that'll allow you to conduct a symphony of destruction upon your foes. And then we got Angels with Scaly Wings. This is coming to PS5 and
you
PS4.
said this how did you still screw it up? You said this like 9 times in the pre-show when we were getting everything set up. You're like, wait, is it scary or scaly? Barrett?
It's a weird title. Angels with Scaly Wings.
Why do you say scaly like that?
Scaly.
It sounds like you're right. Your mind wants to still say scary.
It does. How do you guys say it? Scaly.
Scale. That was totally normal.
Yeah.
But the last time
Angels with
scaly
wings. Angels with scaly wings.
That's how you sound like.
Coming to PS5 and PS4 Friday, April 30th. You, the player, are an ambassador for Earth, sent through a mysterious portal into the world of dragons. Explore a town full of secrets and the people who keep them in this compelling sci-fi visual novel with slice of life and dating sim elements.
Hey.
I love the look of this game. This game looks like a fever dream a little bit.
What it looks like is a Radalika game.
Hatoful boyfriend kind of energy here.
I love that you're playing as dragons. You're dating dragons a bit, but it's called Angels with Scaly Wings.
I fucking knew it. I'm like, that looks like a Radalika Easy Platinum visual novel. And then their newest tweet right here is the retweet. Angels with Scaly Wings will arrive Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox this Friday.
Hell yeah, you can play it.
Do you think it's
for easy ass platinums
for PS4 and PS5?
I guarantee it is with Radalika. Hold on, I'm gonna hit him up right now.
Greg, Tim asked me this question earlier in the week.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to know what you think. You know how the Ratchet and Clank presentation is happening today? Is the time people are listening to this?
Yeah.
Maybe it's already happened if they're listening to it later. in that presentation, we're getting 2 looks into indie games. I guess they said that we're gonna get deep dives or whatever. Maybe not deep dives, but it'll look at 2 indie games. Do you have any predictions on what those games might be? Do you think they're just gonna be PlayStation indies?
Yeah.
I predict Hades is finally coming to PlayStation.
Ooh.
I had the same thought. I had the same exact thought.
When did
we
Hades
might
come
finally
out?
get Hades.
When did Hades come out? Because it's probably a
September.
year of exclusivity, right?
Then it might be a little too early. Well, do you think it's
I mean,
really an
could be-
exclusive deal, or that they really just wanted to hit Switch for launch?
See, that's what I would have thought.
prioritize that.
I
'Cause
bet it
Switch
was
and
a
PC.
deal. I think anytime you see something come with timed windows, it's an exclusive deal. Because I mean, like that's what's happening behind the scenes, right? Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation and Epic Game Store are all so aggressive for exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. Hades was definitely a deal. September 17th, 2020. I don't think that's think that's crazy.
Yeah,
To be like,
I guarantee.
To like what? Announce it and then
Guarantee
release it this
Hades.
September, or
Yeah, it's for this state of play to be like, and something else is coming, Hades, and it's
yeah,
the complete
Zagreus.
edition with whatever.
Zagreus, that's his name. I got it wrong earlier in the show. I was like, what is his name? It's Zagreus.
hot emo boy.
Hot emo boy.
Yeah, I like how you said it, and Bear's like, no,
not his
can't
Hot
give you
emo
that one.
boy.
Sorry, I wish I could. It's not that. Yeah,
I
I'm
hope
ready.
we get it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
aside from that, I think Solar Ash, Stray, like the.
So is your
options are
question?
plentiful.
So I'm sorry, your question about it was, do I think it's something we know, or that it's?
Like, do you have any predictions on what the 2 indie games might be?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, I hadn't thought that far ahead.
I hope we get Stray information or Solar Ash since that's
Ooh.
around the corner.
Give me that cat.
But Hades, I also do want Hades too. Like, I think Hades with a trophy list,
Stray
reason to go
and
back
Hades.
to it again.
I guarantee it.
Straighties nuts.
I don't like the
Sorry.
sound of that.
I'm sorry.
End
I'm
the
like
sorry. I
that.
had to
End
say
the
it.
show. It's over.
I had to say it.
You want to
It
end
was
it there,
right
Barrett? You want to just end it there? You think he's got nothing left in the tank over
No,
there?
I got, he
I
is
peaked. I peaked with Straighties nuts.
Oh, you went to the nuts thing. Before we go, Blessing, tell me a little bit about hashtag PS I Love Photo Mode.
Hashtag PS I Love Photo Mode. Of course, this is our section of the show where we ask you for photo mode input, photo mode submissions, and we highlight the best
photo mode input, please.
we highlight the best of the submissions. A couple weeks ago, I asked for Disco Elysium. Let me tell you, absolutely none of you submitted for the hashtag PS I Love Photo Mode, which tells me that probably not many of you are playing it for the hashtag PSD played this, but we're still gonna have a fun time when we talk about it eventually.
Yeah, well, I put it in here as an update. I said hashtag PS we played this. Of course, our book club that we named that, and I still can't say ever. The idea in my head is that Disco Elysium discussion will be probably the May 10th/11th episode, depending if you watch Patreon. Not May. April. No, yeah, that's right. God, this year, dude. May 10th or 11th episode, depending on where you watch it. PS I Love You, because I feel like Blessing and I are both working on a review, and that's going to take a lot. We just came off Returnal. There's another thing we're doing for reviews, and then I somebody pointed out in the subreddit, they're like, Greg hasn't even started Disco Elysium. I'm like, yep, didn't budget
you haven't?
time. I did not budget my time well on this one.
Let me
so
tell you, I
imagine-
am 21 hours into the game, and I might be halfway.
Yeah, I know it's long. That's the whole
Yeah.
thing. It's not a game I think I'm gonna beat by the time we get there, but I'm more excited to see if it's a game that clicks with me. Because it's that thing, we'll see if I'm going to be into it or not. And then, of course, while we're here, remember that Days Gone is the hashtag PS we played this that we'll play through in May and then talk about at the beginning of June. So if you're getting this in time, you can still download Days Gone for free. And then, of course, be ready for us and that, just to get that.
You were out last week, so I don't know if you heard me mention this.
I have not. I did not. I don't know if you know this. When Janet's on a show, I won't listen to it, even if I'm on the show.
Oh, damn.
It's hard because
Wow.
then I don't know what she said, and I don't know who anybody else on the show said. No, I just didn't have time because again, I was going to bed at 9:30.
You're moving. You're busy. But last week I presented the idea of like, what if we did a hashtag PS we played this for just PlayStation Now? Since like we always talk about it, how like, oh yeah, like
It was usually a free month too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and like it could be fun to just like do a month of PlayStation Now and just see how we feel about it, get updated impressions. The last time I tried PlayStation Now was probably in 2015.
Yeah, and it wasn't good.
Today, it's a solid 7 out of 10.
Oh, great. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we can
There
do
you go.
PlayStation Now updated review or something
Yeah, all right, we can see what we're at after this Days Gone thing.
for sure. For now, though, hashtag PS I Love Photo Mode. Again, the prompt was Disco Elysium. The first runner-up is from Nick, a.k.a. Roy, at I'm Roy Inc. on Twitter. They submitted some images of their Resident Evil demo playthrough with one of the sexy-looking vampires with blood on their mouth and stuff.
That's what gets you going, huh?
Yeah.
This woman covered in blood with a sickle.
You know what, man? I didn't choose this life. This life chose me. So what can I say? And so shout out, Nick. You made it. The second entry comes from Dan Kasanovich at D Kasanovich 17. They submitted a hashtag PSILOVEPHOTOMODE for Days Gone and said sorry, started next month's game early. And you know what, man? Again, we don't ask for these, but you guys do them anyway, and you make it this time since nobody submitted Disco Elysium. And it's a nice photo of a man that would get beat to death by Joel from Last of Us if given the chance, with a very nice night sky in the background. Very beautiful stars and moon and trees. It's a really
I wish he
good
was
photo.
appreciating the scenery more. He seems really tense in this picture. You know what I'm saying, Bliss?
Yeah.
Hey man,
Well, he's
with
out of
freakers
focus.
out there. You got freakers everywhere. You can't let your guard down.
Freakers are just so easy to kill, Greg. You know that's why he's
True.
very soft compared to Joel, and that's why Joel would kill him.
Oh
very
wow.
easily.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Our last submission, which is our winner for this week for hashtag PSILOVEPHOTOMODE, comes from Jason Sams at Jason Sams 1220. They tweeted out this picture, said hashtag PS5 share, hashtag Marvel Spider-Man remastered. Let's frame Spider-Man for this death. Hashtag PSILOVEPHOTOMODE. And it's a picture of Spider-Man with his I forget the name of the suit. The Iron Spider suit with a man tied up behind him with like a bag over his head. He's in a suit. It's fantastic. This man is probably dead, and
Spider-Man killed this man.
I'm with Jason here. Let's frame Spider-Man for his death.
All right. Well, I like D Kosanovich's idea. So let's just do Days Gone for next week. Remember, of course, while you're playing Days Gone, for hashtag We Played This, you can now do hashtag PS I Love Photo Mode. You go to Twitter with your best Days Gone photography skills, put hashtag PS I Love Photo Mode here. You could be on the next episode of PS I Love You. XO. In blessing.
Greg.
We're done. That's the episode. Except for the post show. That's right. You go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames to get the show ad free. And of course, get the post show we're about to do. No matter where you get PS I Love You XOXO, our nerdy PlayStation show. Thank you for listening each and every Tuesday when it normally goes up 6 a.m. Pacific time. Remember, you can get it on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. You can get it on roosterteeth.com, and you can get it on podcast services around the globe each and every week, but only on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Do you get all the bonuses, all the no ads, yeesh. And of course, I got another podcast after this. Jeez Louise, I gotta figure something out. All that jazz. You can go to Patreon. You know what I'm saying? Blah 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 blah. Blessing, Barrett.
Yeah.
Until next time, thank you for your support. We got a show to do on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. So until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.